The roaring hearth in the Tower of the Hand drew long. Sinuous shadows, across shelves packed with vellum scrolls and crab-spined ledgers. Tyrion Lannister sat alone at the broad oak table, candles guttering around him like sentries whose courage was waning. Outside, King's Landing pulsed with revelry, another night of feasts to celebrate Joffrey's impending marriage to Margaery Tyrell. But inside the chamber, a hush as brittle as winter glass pressed against Tyrion's thoughts. He had read the same line in the same letter 6 times, yet the meaning refused to settle. Lord Varys' small, graceful hand had penned it only hours before. The old dragon keeps a single clutch for himself, though the world misnames him lion. What in 7 hells did that mean? Tyrion shut his eyes. When he opened them, the script still gleamed, untouched by whim or wine. On pale parchment, he tapped one thick finger upon the crest. No seal of spider or rose this time, just a red 3-headed dragon stamped over black wax. A jest, surely. Some cipher to humble him. And yet the longer he stared, the deeper the wax seemed to glow, as though embers lay within. A phantom heat kissed the pad of his thumb when he brushed it, and a memory stirred, sepia flashes of childhood tales his uncle Tyrion once spun in the dark, wherein Valyrian princes spoke to fire as men spoke to hounds. He poured himself more arbor red and stood. The wine's perfume, plums oak, a faint whiff of smoke, rose into his sinuses. Across the room, in the high mirror above the marble wash basin, his reflection shimmered. Mismatched eyes, one black, one green, sat beneath a tangled mane of tawny hair in which premature silver threads had begun to nest. His prominent brow and jutting jaw, the features most mocked by courtiers, seemed suddenly unfamiliar, as though belonging to another dwarf entirely. Tyrion studied himself as he might a cryptic text. What if there was something hidden, layered under the flesh handed down by Lord Tywin and Lady Joanna? The notion rang absurd, then dangerous. Father would extinguish him like a candle stub at the merest hint of bastardry. Worse still if that bastardry ran Targaryen red. A knock. 3 raps, light as bowstring plucks. "Enter," he said. The door eased open. Shae slipped through, her silken gown the shade of midnight violets. She bolted it behind her and crossed the floor in feline strides, skirts whispering. Tyrion's pulse quickened with both desire and dread. Even here, behind locked doors, the capital's walls had ears. "My lion looks troubled," she murmured, winding her arms about his neck. Her perfume, sandalwood and summer fruit, banished the room's chill. "Trouble and I are old friends," he said, managing a smile. He folded the letter, hiding the seal beneath his palm. "What brings you?" Shae tilted her head. "You sent no summons tonight. I feared the eyes upon us grow too numerous. They always will," she said, voice low. "Eyes, ears, knives. Shall we let them rule our hearts?" She pressed her lips against his. Tyrion yielded, yet deep inside the ember of unease flared hotter. If the spider's cryptic sentence bore substance, his life, and Shae's, strode perilous ground. He guided her toward the canopied bed, but his mind lingered on dragons, old as Valyria, clutching secrets in their iron claws. And now, across the narrow sea, a cold dawn painted Meereen spires ochre. In the Great Pyramid's highest terrace, Daenerys Targaryen, blood of the dragon, mother of dragons, stood in her nightdress, strands of moon-silver hair tousled by a faint breeze carrying brine from Slaver's Bay. Beneath her stretched the city, waking slowly to the day's demands. Hawkers rolling carts, unsullied changing shifts, the hiss of braziers bursting alight. Yet Daenerys scarcely saw any of it, her violet gaze fixed on Viserion, who circled in the dawning sky like a white comet, golden eyes alight with primal joy. He banked, wings beating thunder, dove toward the terrace, then flared to land upon the scorched tiles. His breath steamed. She reached to stroke the pale scales at his neck, smiling as he crooned, Drogon, tempestuous elder, was away hunting beyond the hills, while Rhaegal slumbered in one of the lower cellars. But Viserion kept watch over his mother with gentle devotion. Daenerys laid her cheek against him, whispering Valyrian endearments only he would hear. Someday, I will have a saddle made, light as linen, strong as dragon bone. We shall soar above cloud and storm together. Viserion rumbled, smoke curling from his nostrils. Daenerys closed her eyes. The hairs along her arms prickled, an irrational certainty that someone, somewhere, spoke her name across leagues, as children cry for their mothers in dreams. And she. In King's Landing, Tyrion's name was shouted at dawn by a page in Lannister crimson, summoning him to council. He donned doublet and cloak while Podrick Payne fumbled with clasps. On the ride to the Red Keep's council chambers, he weighed whether to burn Varys' letter. Instead, he hid it in the hollow spine of a dense tome on Dornish irrigation. Let the gods of dust keep it safe. The small council convened under the painted plaster vault, where maps of Westeros sprawled across a carved elm table. Grand Maester Pycelle droned about grain levies. Lord Mace Tyrell boasted of apple yields. But when the master of ships raised the matter of Braavosi galleys glimpsed near the stepstones, Tyrion's mind jogged awake. Braavos harbored many sell sails, and rumor placed exiled Targaryen loyalists in those mists. Has the Iron Bank financed these hulls? He asked, voice sharper than intended. Sir Axel Florent shrugged, rings clinking. Hard to say. Lord Tywin, seated at the head, regarded his son through half-lidded eyes. Unless the Braavosi intend war, this is idle fret. Stick to coin, Tyrion. Leave ships to the lords who sail them. Humiliation flushed Tyrion's neck. Yet beneath shame, anger coiled. He almost retorted that his father's scorn would not change what sails across seas. Instead, he sipped water and let silence win. Behind Lord Tywin, a crimson banner fluttered in a weak draft. The Lion of Lannister, claws unsheathed. Tyrion wondered then, absurdly, how a lion might fare if flung into a pit with a dragon. And then? That night he found Varys winding a spiral stair below the maiden vault. I need clarity, Tyrion hissed, matching his pace. Speak plainly, or keep your riddles. The eunuch's eyes glimmered lamplight. I always speak plainly, my lord. Only the world wears veils. They stopped at a narrow window where moonlight pooled like quicksilver. Varys folded his hands. You recall stories of King Aerys's visits to Casterly Rock? I recall father forbade the servants to mention them. Yet mention them they did, Varys said. Whispers linger. Joanna Lannister served as lady-in-waiting to Princess Rhaella before her marriage. Some claim King Aerys admired her more than was seemly. She died birthing you. Tyrion's chest constricted. Are you implying? I imply nothing, the spider said. I suggest you consider possibilities. The wind moaned through the slit window, thick with salt and the odor of tanneries. Tyrion tasted metal on his tongue. Do you base this on tavern gossip, or on something firmer? Varys withdrew from his sleeve a scrap of silk. Embroidered upon it in gold thread was a three-headed dragon, the central head dwarf-sized, crowned with amethysts. What I base it on is this. There are those across the sea who believe the Mad King sired a third child beyond Viserys and Daenerys, hidden by Lannister pride. Tyrion's laugh cracked like breaking ice. Why tell me? Because the realm teeters on blades, Varys whispered. If dragons return, and they have, Westeros will need one who can ride words as nimbly as wings. Daenerys Targaryen seeks allies. You could be that bridge, should blood prove truer than we think. Tyrion ripped the scrap in half, flung the pieces. Go juggle flames elsewhere. Yet as he stormed away, the image burned behind his eyelids. Himself astride some pale beast, fire reflecting in mismatched eyes. Months passed while courtly intrigue gnawed the capital, but in the silence between petitions, Tyrion studied dragon lore. Scrolls copied from Asshai, fragments preserved under Sept and Lock and Maester Key. He learned dragons preferred high roosts, that they hatched in stone warmed by fire, that certain bloodlines, those of old Valyria, could withstand the heat no other men could bear. Once, alone, he tested that claim. In the kitchens he dared plunge his hand near a spitting brazier until his palm blistered. Pain flared, but some revolution within him exulted as though greeting an old nursery companion. One evening, he found a volume bound in green leather. Accounts of the reign of King Maegor. A marginal note in faded ink caught his attention. The bastard's egg, underlined thrice. It recounted rumors that Maegor the Cruel had fathered an illegitimate son who vanished with a dragon egg during the final year of his tyranny. Tales placed the stolen egg in the crypts beneath Casterly Rock. Tyrion scoffed. Every keep claimed hidden dragon eggs, but still the thought gnawed. At midnight, he descended narrow service stairwells rarely trod by lords. Keys he'd taken from a half-drunk steward opened the gates to the Lannister crypts. Dust muttered underfoot. Marble lions slumbered atop sarcophagi, bathed in ghost-blue torchlight. Tyrion's lamp flickered, painting claws in motion, manes in flame. If a dragon's relic lay here, his forebears had buried it deep. He spent hours tapping at stone with a brass rod, listening for hollows. At last, behind the effigy of Titos Lannister, a faint resonance answered. He pried at a loose slab. Heart hammering. Beneath curved limestone he found a cavity no larger than a baker's oven. Inside sat a single object. An egg-shaped mass of stone, mottled cream and gold, veins of red like molten rivers trapped in crystal. Heat emanated, gentle yet unmistakable. Tyrion knelt, transfixed by the unearthly beauty. He reached, but halted, fingers trembling. If it hatched, if it chose some rider, Tywin's realm would shatter. Yet, if legend spoke true, dragons chose blood. And if his blood carried fire, he lifted it. The shell felt warm, alive. A ripple of sensation raced up his arm, as though the egg measured his soul and made note. A clatter echoed behind him. He spun. Podrick Payne stood at the threshold, round-eyed, torch, shaking. "My lord," Pod stammered. Tyrion replaced the slab, cradling the egg inside his cloak. "Not a word, Pod. To anyone. Or they'll say your stutter is treason." Pod nodded furiously. Together they fled the crypts like thieves. Gun? Meanwhile, in Meereen, Daenerys dreamed. She wandered spears of glass and steel towering in black seas of grass. Atop one spire perched a pale dragon. Wings half-furled. A dwarf in lion-trimmed mantle approached, offering the dragon an egg pulsing like a heart. When the dwarf cracked the shell, golden flame poured forth, and the field ignited into daylight. Daenerys awoke, gasping, skin slick with sweat. Dawn broke false outside, the darkest hour just before the sun climbs. She rose, wrapping a thin robe about her shoulders, and descended to Viserion's roost. He raised his head, sensing her turmoil. Eyes like molten citrine glowed. She pressed her brow to his snout. "Something stirs across the world," she murmured. "I feel it tugging at you." Viserion rumbled agreement, as though he too tasted a signal on the wind. "Bendy." Tyrion's stolen egg he hid inside a brazen brazier in his solar, banked with coals that never quite cooled. Each dawn he inspected it. Each dusk he whispered. Valyrian words gleaned from text and rumor. Kelatos. Dracarys. Dotting. Eldritzes. The air around him throbbed with a strange kinship, like a song he half remembered from cradle days. Once he dreamed the egg cracked to reveal a hatchling with wings of parchment gold and eyes of green and black. When he reached to touch it, Father's voice barked, "Monster!" and a lion's paw struck him awake. In waking hours, letters from Varys accrued. Reports of a silver-haired queen liberating Slaver's Bay, of dragons grown as large as warships. Lord Tywin dismissed them as exaggerations, yet the Golden Lion's stoic mask tightened. The Iron Throne's network of informers could not ignore 3 living dragons forever. Then came word that Prince Oberyn Martell had offered to champion Tyrion in trial by combat. The Red Viper's death during the duel against Sir Gregor Clegane condemned Tyrion despite his innocence. Shackled, bruised, thrown into a cell to await execution, he thought not of the 7 but of the egg. If he died, its power would languish and rot. In the black of the sky cell, he sang lullabies in high Valyrian, cadence cracked by despair. Yet fate, or a spider, intervened. Varys smuggled him through crawlways to the bowels beneath the Red Keep. There Tyrion faced his father seated upon the privy, crossbow bolt poised between lion's eyes. Tyrion's finger trembled on the trigger. "Where do whores go?" he asked. But deeper than anger lay grief. Deeper than grief lay an older question. Whose son am I? He loosed the bolt. Tywin Lannister died with surprise frozen on his face. Tyrion fled that night in a crate, gagged by the smell of pickled fish, bound for Pentos. The egg he carried wrapped in ermine nestled against his chest like a second heart. And now why? Illyrio Mopatis received him with cordial pomposity, feasts and baths and silk cushions. But Tyrion spied calculation behind the cheesemonger's smiles. During one supper, Illyrio's eyes lingered too long upon the bulge under Tyrion's tunic. "You carry burdens, my little friend," Illyrio purred. "Don't we all?" Tyrion replied, pouring more wine. "Some of us even carry them well." Illyrio dabbed grease from his chin. "I have arranged passage to Meereen, where a certain queen values unconventional counselors. A man of your gifts could prove invaluable." "Or Calarsum," Tyrion muttered. "Rarely does a prince begrudge a precious gift." Illyrio's fingers drummed the table. Tyrion sensed he spoke of more than dwarfs. That night Tyrion crept to the mansion's rose garden. Under purple-vined moonlight, he knelt before the egg upon a marble plinth. "If you be dragon," he whispered, "hatch now and free me from these webs. Else let me drown in wine and be done." He struck flint and summoned a blaze beneath it. Flames licked shell. The heat became unbearable, yet he did not flinch. At last the fire guttered. The egg remained whole, glowing faintly in the dark like a sleeping ember. Exhausted, Tyrion slumped against a statue of some forgotten Pentoshi knight. And there he dreamt. A young woman, silver-haired, stood before him amid dunes of ash. Behind her coiled 3 dragons. The middle one, pale as new milk, lowered its head. She extended her hand, eyes of amethyst, soft yet unyielding. "Blood of my blood," she said. When Tyrion awoke, dew soaked his beard and dawn painted the world rose. And the voyage aboard Selasori Kuharan brought seasickness and imprisonment in equal measure. Captain Griff, stern, broad-shouldered, kept a close guard on all passengers. Tyrion played Sivas with Griff's son young Griff, perfecting strategies with dragon pieces. He sensed secrets in both father and son but refrained from prying. Every man afloat these waters carried secrets like daggers, sheathed but never far. Storm clouds on the horizon mirrored the mutiny in Tyrion's heart. He missed Shay with an ache that gnawed bone, dreaded the meeting with a queen who might resent a rival claimant, feared what the egg's silence foretold. Yet beneath fear flowed a river of anticipation. If blood called to blood, Daenerys might accept him, and if Viserion chose him, well, let lions roar. One night, while the crew slept, Tyrion climbed to the quarterdeck. The egg lay heavy in his cloak. Stars hurled silver spears into black water. He set the egg upon the rail and regarded its glossy surface, which reflected constellations in fractured mosaics. "Will you betray me, little monster?" he asked the shell. "Or will you prove I'm something more?" No answer, but the slosh of waves. He lifted the egg high, contemplating hurling it deep, letting seawater quench destiny. His fingertips burned, the shell seared skin. He gasped and drew it close instead, cradling it against his chest, where his heart hammered reply. Somewhere southeast across leagues of inky ocean, a white dragon stirred in its sleep, and answered with a distant trumpet. And now, in Meereen, fires raged. The sons of the Harpy struck unsullied patrols, markets emptied, and plague whispered at the city's rim. Daenerys paced the throne room of polished black marble. Viserion perched above upon a massive bronze brazier. His wings rustled, restless. Her advisors quarreled, Hisdar demanding opening the fighting pits, Selmy urging caution, Dario promising blood. Yet Daenerys listened most keenly to the silence between their words. A silence filled, she sensed, by wings yet unseen, by a voice small but urgent riding the wind from the west. That night, dreaming again, she climbed a tower wrought of dragonbone and looked east. Upon the horizon a flicker of gold red like a lantern at sea approached. When it resolved, she saw a ship aflame, and upon its prow, a dwarf clutching something bright. She reached for him. He vanished. She woke, trembling. No. The Celisori Cuhoran never reached Marine. Gale-force winds drove it aground upon a sandbar where corsairs of New Gist descended. Captain Griff fought valiantly but was overwhelmed. Tyrion, shorter than most men's shoulders, slipped between blades and hid beneath coils of rope. At battle's height, he scurried to the skiff, Egg tied to his back with a torn sail, and cut the lines. The skiff lurched into surf, bobbing like a cork. Arrows hissed overhead. One nicked his ear, another struck the gunwale. Tyrion rowed until arms screamed, and the gale seized him, spinning the craft into darkness. For 2 days he drifted under a sky of searing blue by day, vaulting black by night. Thirst cracked his lips. Hunger clawed his gut, but the egg's warmth never faltered. He clung to it, half believing it nourished him. On the third dawn, seabirds circled. He glimpsed spires of sun-bleached rock rising from mist. The islands they called the Basilisk Chain. Tyrion beached on a crescent of white sand, strewn with dragonglass shards, sharp as razors. His legs collapsed. He lay there while breakers hissed like distant applause. When the sun climbed high, delirium took him. He crawled upshore, egg dragging furrows. Amid thorny scrub he found a cave mouth streaked with soot. Within, stalactites glistened. Ash coated the floor. At the center lay bones charred black, dolphins, goats, the carcass of a wyvern. Heat radiated from deeper darkness. Tyrion's pulse sang. A dragon lair, some rational part protested. Flee. Yet stronger than fear, a compulsion drew him inward. Egg clutched to chest. He sighted the beast before it sensed him. A juvenile wyvern, green-scaled, eyes yellow as marigolds, sleeping beneath a dripstone shelf. Not a true dragon, akin enough. Tyrion crouched, heart drumming. He edged past, feet silent. At the cave's heart a bubbling vein of molten rock cast crimson glow. He set the egg upon a rock lip above the magma. "Wake," he pleaded, though sweat stung his eyes. "Before I burn or beasts devour me, wake." He spoke in Valyrian, then in the tongue of old Valyria, taught by dusty volumes. Flames licked the air. The shell shimmered. A crack like splitting ice echoed. A fissure traced the curve of the egg, leaking radiant light. Tyrion stepped back. The shell burst, shards sailing, and from them unfurled a hatchling no bigger than a cat, scales whiter than milk, wings edged with gold. Its eyes opened, pupils slit, irises swirling green and black. The creature squeaked. Smoke curling. Tyrion trembled, unsure whether to sing or sob. It fixed on him, head tilting. He extended a blistered palm. The hatchling crawled upon it, talons pricking. But heat no longer hurt. Sensation flowed through him like molten silver. Outside, the wyvern stirred, scenting competition. It slithered forth, hissing. Tyrion's hatchling unfolded wings, emitting a shrill screech, and exhaled a jet of pale flame. The wyvern recoiled, scales smoking. Rage trumped prudence. It lunged. Instinct overcame dwarfish caution. Tyrion leapt between them, raising arms. The hatchling clung to his shoulder and spit fire again, brighter, hotter. The wyvern shrieked, fled to the cave mouth, battered wings scraping stone as it escaped into blinding day. Silence fell, broken by Tyrion's ragged laughter. He collapsed to knees, tears of heat and relief streaming. The hatchling nestled against his neck, heartbeat sensing with his own. "I'll call you Embers," he whispered, then shook his head. "Too small. You'll outgrow it in days, won't you?" Perhaps. Viserion, the name felt familiar on his tongue, yet wrong. He sensed that name belonged elsewhere. No, he said. "You need a name worthy of your vengeance upon all who called me monster. Worthy of the secret we share." He thought of his father's corpse, of lions toppled by bolts, of cities toppled by dragons. Brightfire, he decided at last, though the hatchling offered no protest nor approval, merely rested, warm and alive. And the Basilisk Isles offered only ruin and risk. Tyrion scavenged wyvern eggshells and vine-wrung gourds, tamed a goat for milk, fashioned cages for crabs. Brightfire grew swift. Within a fortnight his wingspan doubled, his fire strengthened. Tyrion's love for him grew with equal fervor, yet so too did the ache that told him they must leave. Daenerys needed to see. The world needed to know. He built a beacon of driftwood and pitch on the highest cliff, ignited it one moonless night. The column of smoke by day, flame by night, might draw passing ships, or pirates. He gambled on fate's fickle kindness. Fate sent not corsairs, but a battered galley bearing a sigil of the Red Kraken. Ironborn reavers from the fleet of Victorian Greyjoy, bound for Meereen with a stolen horn said to bind dragons. Tyrion hailed them under a white flag fashioned from tattered sailcloth. When they rowed to shore, axes ready, they found him clad in salt-crusted velvet. Brightfire perched on his shoulder. The reavers hesitated, awed. No man in their sagas spoke of dwarfs with dragons. Tyrion offered barter. Treasures from the cave, wyvern hide obsidian for passage east. Captain Ralph the Limper agreed, one eye never leaving Brightfire. Tyrion boarded, clutching a new chain leash of silver rings fitted round the dragon's neck. A ruse. Brightfire could snap it with ease, but men believed leashes mattered. As the galley cut eastward, storms gathered astern. Tyrion spent nights on deck under tar-stretched awnings, teaching Brightfire to fly short arcs, praising him with bits of dried crab. In secret he rehearsed Valyrian commands he had read. Sovs. Fly. Dracarys. Fire. Havo. Edel. It. The dragon learned quickly, eager to please. Each success welded joy to Tyrion's heart, and each star-dusted dawn found him more at peace than any day in the Tower of the Hand. Yet peace is mortal. Upon the sixth sunrise, Victorion's massive flagship, Iron Victory, hove into view, black sails like reaper's wings. The horn they called Dragonbinder lay bound in black iron upon its deck. Victorion himself, broad as mountains, eyes smoldering storm, hailed Tyrion's vessel, commanding inspection. A parley followed in mid-sea. Tyrion met Victorion upon plank-bridge decks, brine churning around hulls. Brightfire snarled at the Kraken banners. Victorion's gaze lingered on the hatchling. "I have no use for dwarfs," he said, "but I own horn and spell to claim your worm. Swear fealty and hand him over." Tyrion bowed. "My sword is yours, though short. And my dragon too, should your horn subdue him. Might I watch?" His mind raced. If the horn worked, Brightfire might turn. If not, Victorion meant to seize him by strength. Both paths demanded cunning. Victorion nodded. Many reavers gathered to witness, a circle of rusted mail and eager eyes. The priest Mokoro, face tattooed with red flames, brought forth Dragonbinder, longer than a spear, twisted with glyphs that writhed in shadows. Victorion signaled, and 3 thralls dragged forth a 4th prisoner, and slit his throat to wet the horn. The deck ran red. Mokoro murmured incantations lost to time. Victorion lifted Dragonbinder and poured breath into it. Sound erupted. No mortal note but a shriek of rending iron and cracking ice. Men fell to knees, blood pouring from ears. Tyrion's skull felt split. Yet through pain he saw Brightfire raise head, eyes wide. The horn's wail coiled around the hatchling, invisible chains tightening. Brightfire growled, wings flailing. "Hold fast," Tyrion cried, though to whom he wasn't sure. The dragon fought, claws tearing deck planks. Victorion blew again. Brightfire's body jerked, as though strings guided him toward the Kraken Lord. Then a deeper roar split sky. All faces turned east. Through cloud burst a white shape larger than galleons. Viserion, full-grown, ivory wings drenched in sun. Upon his back rode Daenerys Stormborn, hair streaming silver, armor of pale leather flashing. She had felt her child's distress across foam and gale. Daenerys drew a horn of her own. Small but gleaming, she blew a single pure note. Viserion answered with flame that swallowed the wind. The Kraken flotilla quailed. Victarion tried a third blast of Dragonbinder, but blood spurted from his lips. The horn burned black-red, heat-searing flesh. He dropped it, screaming. The cursed metal split, shriveling to slag. Mokoro fell, charred runes glowing on his skin. In that instant, Brightfire's leash snapped. The hatchling darted skyward to greet Viserion, circles of white and gold meeting in a dance of kinship. Tyrion ran along the tilting deck toward the rail. Reavers reached for him, but Daenerys pointed, and Viserion's breath incinerated the ironborn mast. Horror seized the Krakens. They fled to lifeboats. The galley heaved, aflame. Tyrion climbed the shrouds, smoke clawing lungs. Above, Brightfire hovered, screeching encouragement. Viserion descended, the gale of his wings scattering embers. Tyrion leapt, arms flailing, and miraculously caught the ridge of Viserion's saddle behind Daenerys. She hauled him up with warrior strength born of prophecy. Tyrion hunched, coughing, soot-streaked, meeting her violet gaze for the first time. Words failed. She studied him, eyes widening with ancient recognition. Fire meeting fire. Brightfire settled on Tyrion's lap, trilling. "I know you," she said. "So it would seem," Tyrion rasped. They rose into cloud, Kraken ships burning beneath like funeral pyres. Wind roared, salt-stung eyes, but between them a quieter storm brewed. Questions of blood, of fealty, of future wars. Tyrion looked past Daenerys to the endless east, where a dawn new forged blazed across silver-blue ocean. In that flaming horizon he saw 5 hours of story yet to unfold, of dragons tempered, trusts forged, and a dwarf poised to carve his name across sky and kingdom alike. Brightfire shrieked, gold-edged wings wide, and the world answered with thunder. Ya, K, Ha. The column of smoke from the burning ironborn vessels faded behind them, as Viserion's vast white wings scythed eastward, carrying dragon, queen, dwarf and hatchling into cloud that smelled of salt and spindrift and clean, empty sky. Tyrion clung to the ridged saddle straps with one hand and cradled Brightfire against his chest with the other. The fledgling dozed, belly warm and full of triumph, tiny claws flexing each time Viserion tipped a wing into the wind. Daenerys had not spoken since hauling Tyrion from flame, but he felt her steady breath, felt the tense certainty in her spine, and knew words would come only when she chose. He remembered court whispers that named her girl, but the woman at his back was tempered steel, fire-kissed and unafraid. Daylight dwindled into amber, then plum. They passed other islands, knife-edged reefs, lonesome pillars of black basalt, crescent beaches beat smooth by tide, until the horizon revealed Meereen's great pyramid, its gold-tipped capstone aflame with sunset. Viserion banked above the city walls and descended toward the Queen's private terrace, the air filling with cries of unsullied running to make way, Meereen's merchants pointing skyward, and distant drums that always seemed to rise with dragon shadow. When Viserion alighted, the terrace's broad tiles groaned but held. Daenerys dismounted first. Tyrion swung a leg, then promptly sagged, knees jelly. He had sailed half the world, fought a wyvern, hatched a dragon, and ridden another, but his bowed legs declared mutiny. Grey Worm stepped forward, spear in hand, to offer support, but Tyrion waved him off and straightened. He would enter this new life on his own 2 feet. Missandei hurried out with a heavy cloak of cream-dyed silk for her queen. She paused when she saw the dwarf and the hatchling, surprise blooming like dawn across her features. "Prepare a warm chamber," Daenerys said, voice calm but edged with strain, "and fetch a healer from the temple of Sakaros. Our guest and his companion have come a long way." Missandei bowed and vanished. Grey Worm offered a short salute. The remaining guards remained statues. Wind flicked torch flames. Down in the lower plazas, the last day's light painted the harpy monuments red as rust. Alone at last, Daenerys turned to Tyrion. "Tell me your name." "You know it already, your grace." He adjusted the tatters of his pentoshi jacket and managed a crooked bow. "Tyrion of House." He sucked a breath. "Targaryen?" "Until proof says otherwise, Lannister still fits." Her eyes, purple as dusk violets, sought the truth beneath jest. "Lannister or Targaryen, you carry a dragonling that answered my call. Blood does not lie." She touched Brightfire's back with 2 fingers. The hatchling chirruped, but allowed it, as though acknowledging Damkin. "Why did you come?" He offered the battered chain leash. "I might say destiny. In truth, I had nowhere else. King's Landing wants my head. The seas nearly claimed me twice. This little ember insisted on living. So I followed his lead." A whisper of a smile tugged her lips. "You would serve me? I would counsel you. Drink your wine. Save your enemies the bother of killing themselves. And perhaps, if your dragons permit, fly at your side." He swept an arm toward the hatchling. "I bring bright fire." Small now, yet eggshells seldom predict the dragon. She studied him long enough that the sea breeze raised gooseflesh on his neck. "Serve me well and truthfully," she said at last. "Sir Barristan once told me no ruler can afford a liar, whatever comfort lies may give." She extended a hand, palm down. "Kneel, Tyrion." He did, careful not to jostle Brightfire, and pressed chapped lips to the back of her hand. Her skin smelled of leather and dragon musk, and faint jasmine. When he rose, he belonged to her, and both knew it. And Daenerys set him in apartments 1 level beneath her own. A suite of 3 chambers joined by arched doorways glazed with river-green tiles. The outermost chamber held a marble tub fed by pipes, carrying water warmed by furnace fires in the pyramid's underbelly. The second served as study, shelves sagging under scrolls in Valyrian, Giscari, and the common tongue. The inner room, round and domed, became nursery to Brightfire. Unsullied rolled in a brazier the size of a wine vat, and packed it with glowing coals, so the hatchling might bask. Tyrion noted how the soldier's eyes lingered on the fledgling's milk-white scales, equal parts awe and fear, and he dismissed them gently before latching the bronze doors. When the flame's glow filled the dome, Brightfire crept down Tyrion's arm, wings shivering. He paced circles on the rug, sniffed embroidered lotus blossoms, then scampered to the brazier and curled in the hollow rim. Content. Tyrion exhaled slow. He had crossed a tempest and a queen's judgment. Now he needed a bath, a goblet, and a plan. Water steamed in the tub, scented with lime oil. He lowered himself until shoulders submerged. Heat leached ache from bone. Candleglow danced on vaulted ceiling mosaics of dragons devouring serpents. He half smiled. Fate had odd taste in decor. His smile faded as memory breached. Bass scream. Tywin's death rattle, Varys vanishing into black corridors. Those ghosts had boarded the ship with him. They crouched still, dripping sea brine, along the bathhouse walls. He could drown them in wine later, but ghosts float. He muttered curses at them until marbled silence reclaimed the room. Missandei entered with soft knock and a silver tray. Fresh tunic, leggings, a slender flask of mirror-infused brandy, a bowl of olives. She helped him dry and dress, bashful yet fascinated by the thin scar crossing his collarbone. "Wyvern claw," he explained casually. Before leaving, she set a writing kit on the desk. "Her Grace requests you put your thoughts in letters," she said. "Counsel is sharper when first ordered on parchment." Tyrion thanked her and poured brandy. Then he seated himself, quill poised above vellum, and wrote, "Queen Daenerys, Counsel the First. To rule Meereen, you must stop bleeding for it. Your enemies flutter like moths to flame, ever willing to die if they can spit on your vision. Let the city see that its queen's will is iron, not milk. How? Give opponents a single throat. Someone all may blame when whips crack and pyramids burn. Scapegoats are as vital as generals. He paused, sipped brandy, adjusted his phrasing. A wrong word might appear sycophancy, too sharp a phrase might read insolence. He settled into rhythm, parchment whispering beneath his quill like distant surf. Hours passed. When the final candle dwindled, he sealed the scroll with wax from a taper, pressed his signet into it. A crudely carved lion, no alternative crest yet at hand, then stumbled to the dragon-warm nursery. Bright fire slumbered, chest rising in slow bellows. Tyrion lay beside the brazier and dreamed of soaring on milk-white wings. And morning unfurled like a bright banner of heat. An honor guard escorted Tyrion through perfume-rich corridors to the council chamber where Daenerys sat on a seat, carved from the jawbone of a leviathan. To her right stood Sir Barristan Selmy in armor polished to starlight. To her left loomed Dario Naharis, mustache twirled, eyes glinting with half-mocking devotion. Hizdard zo Loraq knelt at the far end of the dais, shackled, face sallow with terror. The great master's rebellion had peaked overnight. Masked sons of the Harpy slaughtered 20 unsullied, wounding gray worm. 3 charred corpses of Harpy sons hung below the pyramid as dawn tribute. Tyrion offered full obeisance, then climbed the steps and delivered his scroll. Daenerys cracked the seal. Scanned lines, lips tightening in subtle nods. "I see you are swift," she said, voice for the chamber, though eyes for him. "You advise me to appoint a scapegoat, someone to gather hate." "Correct, your grace." He gestured at Hizdar. "The Marinese know his name. Others can die unknown in alleys, but a noble corpse inspires drama." Hizdar whimpered. Tyrion continued, "Better still, don't kill him. Banish him as enemy to the crown and reinstate fighting pits under your own decrees. Let him shoulder blame if blood flows. Let people beg your softer rule." "None." Dario laughed. "The dwarf understands showmanship." Sir Barristan frowned. "And justice?" "Justice," Tyrion echoed. "In times of plague and mutiny, justice is a banquet too dear. Offer hope instead. It costs less and tastes similar." Daenerys weighed the thought. "Very well. Hizdar zo Loraq, you are hereby exiled to Astapor. Take what wealth you may carry on one barge, no more. Should you return without my leave, Viserion will judge your plea." "Then?" Hizdar babbled thanks even as Unsullied dragged him away. Tyrion suppressed a pang. Scapegoats seldom understood their part until hooves thundered. When chamber emptied, Daenerys gestured Tyrion aside. "Barristan tells me my brother Viserys once promised him a seat on his Kingsguard, should he win Westeros. Sworn brothers speak truths others dare not. I wish a sworn brother of words." She tilted her chin. "Will you be my hand?" The old oak words of pride and fear cracked under shock. Tyrion had worn that chain in King's Landing, a gilded necklace of offices Tywin had used to leash him. He considered the weight anew beneath a dragon queen. "Yes," he said softly, "with one condition." "Name it." "When the day comes you sail for Westeros, my dragon and I sail beside you. And when we land, you declare openly what blood runs in my veins. My father, whoever he was, spent my lifetime denying me. I would see the denial burn to cinders." Daenerys studied him, the corners of her eyes remembering their first dream-laden meeting across a blasted field. "So it shall be." She extended a chain of blackened iron links ending in a brooch wrought as 3 dragon heads. No golden hands, this emblem bore flame. She fastened it to his tunic at the collar, palms resting on his shoulders a heartbeat longer than needed. "Rise, Lord Hand." He rose, shorter than any dais, but higher than ever in his mind. And, in the weeks that followed, Meereen changed shape under shared rule. Tyrion met nightly with Daenerys over bread spiced with cumin and fig wine brewed in the shadowed alleys. They quarreled, laughed, invented stratagems. She rode Drogon at dawn. Tyrion trotted Brightfire along the riverfront at dusk. coaxing the fledgling into ever longer flights, linking him always with a braided harness so he might safely circle pier and pyramid before settling back on the dwarf's arm. Children threw flowers. Sailors crossed themselves. Grey Worm healed and resumed patrols. The sons of the Harpy dwindled, then resorted to smears. Tiny nails dipped in basilisk poison, left beneath palace doorways. Tyrion forced his council to dine together at a single long table with food testers side by side. He joked that nothing encourages trust like eating from the same suspected stew. Daenerys insisted the unsullied advance pay to families of slain Harpies' victims. Barristan trained freedmen into a city guard. Daario raided bandit den after bandit den, returning with wagons of stolen grain to sell cheaply in bazaars, inflating the queen's popularity. Brightfire grew daily, cat to goat, goat to hound, hound to lean white horse. By the second moon he matched a small war pony. Tyrion commissioned a saddle of bronze riveted whale leather lined with lamb's wool. He practiced mounting in a wide courtyard strewn with sand. Sir Barristan observing, offering balance tips from decades astride destriers. The first attempt saw Tyrion flung 10 feet into a melon cart. The second ended in a face full of sand and a broken wrist. The 20th found him clinging, screaming oaths, but aloft. Brightfire startled into flight, wings thunder white beneath the sun. They soared across Marine's harbor, the dwarf howling half in terror, half ecstasy. Far below, fishermen speared the air as if to catch miracles. Daenerys joined them on Viserion, Drogon trailing, Rhaegal swooping low over river delta. 4 dragons now dotted sky, an omen none could ignore. Winter's first winds arrived as parchment bearing dire news. A Sellsword prince had landed in the Stormlands, naming himself Aegon Targaryen, true-born son of Rhaegar. Rallying lords, disenchanted with Lannister crown. In the north, banners of the direwolf assembled under Stark bastards, rumored alive. And Cersei sat the Iron Throne, rumor said, crowned with wildfire and grief. Pushing ordinance declaring her youngest brother the killer of their father and son. Tyrion read the scroll until letters blurred. Across the council table Daenerys asked, "What troubles you most?" "Everything," he admitted. "My sister's cruelty is worse when she fears. Westeros fractures. Aegon may or may not be genuine, but his golden company believes it, and that alone draws swords. If you arrive late, you inherit a broken map." She tapped the parchment. "Then we must depart soon. Soon, my queen, yet not rushed. We need grain for armies, coin for fleets, coal for dragon forges." He drummed fingers where chain of office pressed collarbones. "I suggest a marriage." Her brow rose. "You? Already? Not me, gods no." He swallowed. "You. Supposing Aegon truly is your nephew, a union might fuse claims, present united Targaryen front. It spares bloodshed, and spares me facing my sister with 3 dragons and politics as usual." He half smiled. "Besides, nephew husbands are practically tradition among your house." Daenerys pushed back her chair, stood, paced to terrace doors thrown wide to night's salty breath. "I have had enough husbands fashioned of necessity." She said, "Khal Drogo for survival, Hisdar for appeasement. I will not chain myself again." Tyrion limped to her side, his wrist still aching from flight lessons. "Then you wield another chain. Alliance with Stark in the north. They despise Lannisters, present company accepted, but they revere honor. Win their hearts, and the rest follow or burn." "Then Sao. Lady Sansa is rumored a hostage in King's Landing," Daenerys replied. "Her brother Jon commands at the wall. Even better. Offer dragons to fight the dead things Northerners whisper of. Then marry Sansa's brother. Starks once wed Targaryens when dragons flew." He caught her gaze. "Love may grow where peace blooms." She snorted softly. "Can you picture me as Lady of Winter Snows? I picture you as Queen of 7 Kingdoms, climate incidental." Silence stretched, punctuated by harbor bells tolling low tide. At last she nodded. "We ready to sail in spring. You will oversee provisions. Sir Barristan drills infantry. Dario leads Dothraki raids on slave ports to fund coffers. The dragons will hunt and grow until their wings shadow fleets. A sound plan. Tyrion exhaled, until bright fire burst overhead through open shutters. Chittering triumph. An urchin followed, breathless, bearing sealed scroll from Westeros. Aegon had taken Storm's End, rallied Tarth, thrived on Dornish supplies. Spring might come late for all but him. And 2 months blurred in hammer clangs and quill scratches. Tyrion corresponded with Iron Bank emissaries, promising dragonback inspections of Braavos in exchange for lenient loans. Arranged the purchase of 1,000 barrels of Tyroshi wildfire, rumored lost at sea, and bribed 6 rival Meereen's nobles to stab each other before dawn. Nothing tames pretenders like mutual distrust. Rebellions dwindled to snarls. Daenerys spent dawns training Tyrion and Brightfire in sky formation. Drogon leading, Viserion port flank, Rhaegal starboard, Brightfire rear skirmish, dwarfish rider scanning for crossbow nests. The youngest dragon's growth astonished maesters. He rivaled Daenerys mounts at equal age. Scales pearl white, rimmed in molten gold. Breath a pale flame that left marble smoking. Tyrion learned to guide by body lean and reins woven of boiled merhorse hide. High above Meereen they traced patterns, each pass lower, until city children clapped, faces turned star-bright in wonder. Yet Tyrion sensed unease in Daenerys whenever Drogon banked to shadow Brightfire. The great black beast tolerated the fledgling, but met the dwarf's gaze with ember-hot hostility. He remembers Blackwater, Tyrion explained one evening, caressing the healed scar along Drogon's jaw where wildfire had blistered scales. Tavern rumors insisted. I burned his cousins by the 1,000. Dragons store grudges. Daenerys stroked Drogon's neck. Then we teach him forgiveness. The new world cannot thrive on old flames alone. Edom. A war council convened on the pyramid's roof at spring's first full moon. Maps anchored by bronze goblets rippled in wind, stinking of dragon fat. Tyrion stood beside Daenerys. To his left clustered Ser Barristan, Dario, Grey Worm, and a shadowy newcomer, Melisandre of Asshai, hair red as sunset on snow. She had arrived unbidden, borne by a Lysine galley whose crew claimed she walked across waves of fire. She brought tales of the Night's King rising north of the wall, of ice worms bigger than castles, of a sword her prophecy said glowed like dawn. Tyrion found prophecies tiresome, but politics demanded courtesy. Melisandre's red gaze lingered on Brightfire perched behind him. 4 heads again, she murmured. The prince that was promised rides in dwarf's guise, or perhaps the queen's blood weaves truer thread. I see both flames. Let us stitch banners later, Tyrion muttered. We have ships to sail, and relatives to unseat. Dario laid a dagger on the map, point-piercing Dorne. The Triarchs of Volantis pledge ships to Cersei if we attack through the stepstones, he said. Sail straight north. Take Old Town where maesters keep ravens, cut communication. Old Town's high towers have not bent knee to dragons since Aegon, Barristan cautioned, and their walls mount scorpions of ironwood. Tyrion traced routes. Aegon besieges King's Landing from Stormlands. We can strike Lannisport, cut Cersei's purse, ignite Westerlands to revolt. Grey Worm tapped Blackwater Bay with spear butt. Queen's enemy sits on Iron Throne. Unsullied prefer straight march. Daenerys listened, expression unreadable. At last she spoke. We will sail for Dragonstone, my birthplace. From there we threaten King's Landing without spreading across half a continent. Stannis' old stores remain, and its cliffs shelter dragons. Tyrion inclined head. A symbolic roost, politically poetic. Your ancestral seat reclaimed, while half your cousin's armies still argue heraldry. A wise choice, my queen. Dario twirled mustache. It will be fun, too. Ser Barristan stamped agreement. We should depart within 10 days if sails are ready. Tyrion cleared throat. One complication. A raven from Braavos. The Iron Bank insists on an envoy before our fleet leaves. They fear default if you die at sea. Daenerys sighed. They always fear default. Taking Brightfire with me aboard a fast cutter should reassure them. Tyrion said. Your dragon's too large to dock in Bravos. They'd panic courtyards. I reassure bankers. Sign parchment. Rejoin fleet near Pentos. Dario frowned. A single cutter in pirate seas? Pirates prefer gold over dwarfs. Besides, Brightfire's breath is persuasion. Tyrion met his queen's gaze. I will not tarry, I swear it. After long beat she nodded. Go, but come back. We sail on the eve of the summer comet's rise. Ender Alwyn. Tyrion boarded the Swift Arrow at dawn, Brightfire roosting atop the mainmast, wings flexing as gulls screamed challenge. The cutter knifed through sea-green swells, outrunning slavers' hulks, skimming shoals where dolphins leapt. Tyrion kept a cabin drafting treaties, first with Bravos, second with Prince Aegon. If blood tied nephew to aunt, it might spare kingdoms. He wrote carefully, sealing scrolls with wax pressed by a ring he had forged. Three-headed dragon crouched atop a roaring lion. Hybrid truth. He would show Daenerys once it felt solid. On the fourth night, a fog rose, thick as wool, swallowing moon and star. Sailors muttered of ghosts. In the hush, oar knocks echoed off unseen hulls. The watch cried out, corsairs out of mire. Phosphorescent lanterns revealed black sails etched with a crimson leech. 3 war dramens closed. Raise Brightfire, Tyrion yelled. Sailors scrambled. The dragon swooped, pale beacon in mist. But bolts hissed from enemy ballistae. One sliced his flank. Brightfire screamed, flame gouting wild, igniting the fog itself. Tyrion's heart, hammered as smoke, flame, and shadow, writhed overhead. The cutter heeled, splinters filled air. A pirate grapple landed, men poured across. Tyrion drew a dagger, somewhere between sewing needle and kitchen knife compared to cutlasses, and stabbed the first corsair in groin. Chaos erupted. Brightfire dove strafing flame, enemy rigging burned. But numbers overwhelmed. Captain Miles felled a scimitar stroke. Helmsman collapsed with arrow in eye. The Swift Arrow careened toward jagged rocks. Tyrion seized wheel but cords parted. He roared for Brightfire. The dragon circled, bleeding, disoriented. Tyrion weighed options. Capture meant ransom or keelhaul. He chose neither. Lashing rope around waist, he clambered rail, whistled. Brightfire swooped. Tyrion leapt, caught the harness ring with both hands, and they climbed into choking sky. Below, the cutter shattered on reef. Pirates screaming. Tyrion's stomach lurched as Brightfire flapped toward open waters, but the dragon faltered, wound gushing. Tyrion pressed hand to slick scales. Steady, my friend. He searched horizon for land until gray silhouette appeared. A tower atop isle no wider than Market Square. Derelict of lice, abandoned watchfort. Brightfire landed atop crumbling parapet. Whoa. Tyrion unbuckled harness, tore tunic strips to staunch bleeding. He built fire of driftwood, melted pitch scraped from arrow barrel, smeared it to cauterize wound. Brightfire roared fury but endured. The dwarf whispered Valyrian lullabies until flames softened pain. They remained maroon 3 days, subsisting on gull eggs and rainwater pooled in stone hollows. Tyrion spent hours reading runes etched on tower walls, old Valyrian prayers to the Lady of Sky. He traced one sigil that glowed under moonlight, sensing resonance. On third dawn, a Bravosi mirror ship appeared, drawn by smoke. They hoisted dwarf and dragon aboard with golden nets, and conveyed them to the arsenal, gray spires coaxing reflection off still canals. Bravos received him with curt fascination. The Iron Bank's marble halls smelled of parchment and fear. Its councilmen, thin as quills, listened to his assurances, while Brightfire roosted on a parapet outside, snorting frost from nostrils for show. He negotiated 30 million golden dragons in credit, payable from Westerosi customs once Daenerys reigned. In return, the bank provided 20 warships and condottieri pay for 2 years. Papers sealed. He departed under red sails, one step ahead of plague rumors from Tyrosh. He rejoined Daenerys' fleet off Pentos. A shimmering armada of cog, caravel, and Draman flying banners stitched with dragon and harpy entwined. Drawbridges between ships buzzed with unsullied ranks, Dothraki horse penned in straw-padded holds, freedmen archers drilling. The queen's flagship, Queen of Fire, boasted forecastle wide enough for Drogon to roost. When Tyrion ascended gangplank, Daenerys waited at rail. She embraced him, brief, fierce. "I feared," she admitted. "Fret not, my queen. I come bearing banknotes thicker than a maester's treatise, and minor dragon trauma." He indicated Brightfire's healing scar. "We'll have him breathing true again by Dragonstow's shore." She smiled, then frowned at the faint tremor in his hand. "You nearly died. Several times." He exhaled. Yet each time, Brightfire refused. "I merely follow his stubbornness." Summer's comet, a blood-red streak that older fishermen whispered, foretold Dragon's wrath, burned overhead as the fleet set sail. Across the narrow sea, ravens screamed of wars stacking like kindling. Aegon besieging King's Landing's south gate, Lannister armies shattered near River Run by Stark Tully host, and Queensguard loyal to Cersei retreating into the Red Keep with barrels of wildfire. Tyrion stood beside Daenerys on quarterdeck as Pentos faded astern. Sea breeze snapped banners. Drogon, Viserion, Rhaegal circled high, while Brightfire glided lower, playful, diving between masts. The queen's hair streamed silver. His black and green eyes mirrored comet tail. 5 hours ago, Tyrion mused aloud, "I was signing over half your kingdom to bankers. 5 hours hence," she answered, "we chart skies no king has mastered in a century." She laid a hand on his shoulder. "What do you see in 5 days?" He pictured Dragonstone's obsidian cliffs, the painted table alive under torchlight, stark direwolves crossing causeway with dragons overhead. He pictured Cersei's defiant sneer burning away beneath Drogon's roar, Euron's fleet smoldering, dwarfs and dragon riders carved into ballads. He imagined a city he once called home, freed from lion's claws, ruled by queen and council, justice tempered by laughter and flame. "In 5 days," he said, "I see dawn on a world about to remember what dragons mean." Brightfire cried loud, echoing across black waves like a herald's trumpet. The fleet answered with drum baits, sails blooming. Above them, the comet blazed a molten path west, guiding fire to fire, blood to blood, fate to the throne where stories end or begin anew. And somewhere beyond horizons, winter winds gathered, ice-mirrored flame, and the dance that once ended in ash prepared to rise again. This time on wings of white gold and dwarf-shaped defiance, in a song of ice and bright fire yet unsung. Night thickened over open sea, the comet's crimson smear reflected in waves that shifted like blackened bronze. From the quarterdeck of Queen of Fire, Tyrion watched the stars re-emerge one by one, each seeming to tremble at the roar of wings above the fleet. Drogon spiraled in lazy arcs, trailing smoke from his vast nostrils, as if the air itself were tinder. Rhaegal and Viserion followed, a matched pair of gold-green and ivory luminescence, their shadows sliding over white-capped swells. Brightfire lagged astern in lower sweeps, still nursing the half-healed rent in his shoulder, yet stubbornly refusing to yield the sky. Sailors paused at their lines to gape every time the young dragon banked, white pinions catching moonlight like polished horn. Below, the Taroshi-painted hulls of the Braavosi warships cut a wedge, escorting the Myrini's galleys and Volantene grain barges that Daenerys had cajoled into service. Black canvas belled over masts. Purple and red lanterns glimmered along railings, tossing orange shards of reflection across dark water. Tyrion's new chain of office, a three-headed dragon wrought in black steel, lay warm above his breastbone, heavier than the golden hand he had once worn. It pressed on scar tissue and memory alike. Daenerys appeared beside him wrapped in a cloak of midnight wool lined with pale silk. The wind teased silver strands from her braid and made them dance like living threads of starlight. No guards attended her, Even Grey Worm understood that a quarterdeck at midnight was safer than any throne room guarded by spears when 4 dragons prowled overhead. Reports from the Outriders? She asked, voice low but steady. None, Tyrion replied, keeping gaze on the horizon where a faint, diffuse glow hinted at the waxing moon. Which means either Euron's fleet hides beyond the curve of the world, or fortune finally smiles upon us. He lifted a wineskin, offered it. Arbor Gold, Captain Valaro's private stock. He claimed it smuggler's proof against mutiny. Daenerys accepted a swallow. The lantern light turned the liquid to molten topaz. I prefer honesty to fortune. She said after a moment. Handing the skin back. Fortune changes with the tide. Truth endures. If only the 7 kingdoms agreed, Tyrion murmured, wiping his mouth. Still, I'll take what fortune we can coax. With each league west, the price of our first mistake rises. First mistakes rarely kill. She countered. It is pride in refusing to correct them that raises cities. Somewhere in those words lingered ashes of Meereen's harpy pylons, collapsed after she yielded half a step, then recommitted with steel. Tyrion inclined his head. I stand corrected. They lapsed into silence, the sort that felt companionable rather than strained. Below, the rhythmic creak of the rudder chain underscored the hush. In the spaces between wave slap and canvas sigh, Tyrion heard his own pulse, a whisper reminding him he was alive, despite every wager the world had placed against him. Do you dream of Dragonstone? He asked finally. Daenerys considered. Dream is not the word. I imagine. My brother once spoke of it as a bleak place. Wind-flayed cliffs, halls slick with salt spray, fires forever hungry. He hated it because it was cold and small, compared with the Red Keep he believed stolen from him. Yet Viserys never understood that sometimes small and cold things endure where opulent ones rot. I want to see the painted table he scorned all my life, and the chamber where my mother labored amid storm and blood to bring me breathing into a world already at war. Then she. Poetic, Tyrion said. My own birth involved less thunder, just a father's disappointment and a mother's corpse. She glanced sidelong. Her eye color, violet, but deeper than any gemstone, held a gentleness that made Tyrion wish he hadn't spoken. You rarely let grief show, she said. Grief is a city tax, he replied. You pay it once, or the collectors hound you forever. Better to slip them a counterfeit smile and keep walking. Daenerys leaned on the rail. A ghost passed between us the first night we met, though we did not name it. You killed your father. I killed my brother. Both men shaped us through fear. Both men were slain by a kin's hand, yet the world calls one act patricide and the other justice. Is there difference? Only in the telling, Tyrion said, surprised by how steady his voice remained. History forgave you at the instant Viserys threatened your unborn child. My father needed no sword to do harm. His words sufficed, and yet history will brand my bolt through his gut, a villain's deed. I accepted that the moment the trigger loosed. Benderol. A thrum of wings passed overhead. Drogon descended in a lazy spiral until his shadow swallowed deck and lantern alike. When he landed on the aft platform, the board shuddered, timbers groaning under his weight. He craned his great horned head toward the 2 humans, as if assessing whether argument or affection was afoot. Daenerys lifted one gloved hand. Drogon's nostrils expanded, taking her scent. Satisfied, he settled, eyes half-lidded. Hot gusts of sulfur kissed Tyrion's cheeks. Would you undo it? Daenerys asked, voice almost lost in the wind. No, Tyrion said, because doing so would mean surrendering everything learned in the years since. Regret is a fool's coin. It purchases nothing. Silence again, heavier this time. Drogon exhaled a plume of smoke that drifted toward the stars. Behind them, the door to the captain's cabin opened. Missandei emerged with parchment, hair wrapped in a dozen woven knots to keep it from the sea breeze. Messages from young Kai, your grace. and a smaller packet for Lord Hand from Braavosi representatives aboard Winter Iris. Daenerys accepted her sealed roll without comment. Tyrion slit thread on his packet, scanning quickly. The bank confirms departure of their second escort squadron by way of Pentos. They'll trail us by 2 days, weather allowing. He tapped the wax. They also reiterate the penalty for default. Aegon or Cersei inherits our loan if we fall. Typical, Daenerys said, tucking her letter inside her sleeve. No war without bankers. Very well. We won't fall. Bah. Missandei lingered. The night's calm, but Captain Villaro fears storms at dawn. His glass shows pressure dropping fast. Let him reef sail at first light, but warn the Braavosi that we maintain speed, Tyrion instructed. Our dragons outrun storms if they must. Our fleet cannot, so balance lies in vigilance. Missandei nodded and departed. Footsteps light across planks damp with spray. Daenerys looked back across dark water. Storms again. Dragonstone seems determined to welcome me as it did at birth. Storms breed dragons, Tyrion said. And dragons calm storms, if they breathe fiercely enough. She smiled, faint and fleeting. But it carried something older than either of them. A fire-forged certainty that the world might still hew to their will. And show. The gale arrived sooner than forecast, rising like a beast from the southwest while the horizon still glimmered with first pink. Rain lashed sailcloth, rattling the lines so violently that half-asleep deckhands woke believing they'd been thrown into battle. Braavosi Marines cursed in guttural dialects and scrambled to secure ballistae as masts groaned. The leading edge of the tempest looked like a wall of hammered iron streaked with lightning. Tyrion, hands wrapped round Brightfire's breast harness, crouched near the mainmast as a wave vaulted the bow and soaked the forecastle. Salt water muddied the dragonet's healing incision, but Brightfire merely shook his head, exhaling a thread of steam that hissed in the storm-cold air. Not yet, Tyrion muttered. You'll have chance to scorch the sky soon enough. A crack like splitting stone rent the wind. Drogon shot upward from the aft platform, tail smashing deck railings as he took to air, flinging ocean spray in a glittering arc. Rhaegal and Viserion followed, claws carving furrows in the rain. Moments later, Brightfire surged, wings buffeting crewmen against stacked barrels. Tyrion was dragged half upright, boots skidding across slick timber, until he found purchase by slamming shoulder into a capstan. Above, 4 dragons zigged across black cloud in a staggered V, their combined might distorting the gale. Each jet of flame carved out momentary pockets of calm. Heat lashed rain into vapor, surprising sailors with bursts of warm mist. The fleet knifed on, the dragon screen turning chaos into order by sheer presence. Yet the sea itself fought with curling troughs taller than any mast. The Pentoshi galley Sun Prince vanished between swells, and when it surfaced its mizzen snapped, pitched downward, then tore away. Tyrion watched through sheets of rain as Braavosi escort ships flanked the cripple, lines thrown to brace it. Some half-dozen sailors fell, bodies whisked away by undertow. Daenerys remained in the bow, cloak plastered to her frame, hair whipping. She seemed carved from the storm, a statue come alive to command wind. Grey Worm planted himself a pace behind her. Spear reversed and jammed into a scupper to brace. He had argued to keep her below, but Daenerys refused. Queens do not hide from the weather that forged them. Mid-squall, horizon lights sparked as if stars had fallen into sea. Braziers on masts far ahead bobbing. Tyrion squinted, water stinging his eyes. Not stars, ships, and many. Their hulls cut across the fleet's path in a ragged line. Black sails stitched with a red-eyed squid. Euron Greyjoy had found them in the heart of the tempest. The shouting began low in the rigging, spread aft like wildfire. Braavosi trumpets sounded a 3-note alarm. Unsullied shields rang as captains hammered spearbutts against bronze. Daenerys raised one arm, fingers clenched. Above, Drogon wheeled, red lightning illuminating onyx scales. In the sudden near silence between thunderclaps, Tyrion caught Euron's war horn, a long, low blare half drowned by wind, but unmistakable. Then the first scorpion bolts tore skyward, trailing burning pitch. One grazed Rhaegal's right wing. He reeled, roaring. Another plunged through Viserion's sail membrane, ripping a gash but missing bone. Drogon avoided the volley with contemptuous ease, banking, diving. Brightfire, smaller and quicker, darted under Viserion. Flames spitting, Tyrion scrambled toward the rail as Daenerys signaled orders. He felt rather than heard her command. Drogon folded into a stoop that all but inverted him. Fire burst from his jaws, a column so fierce that rain flashed to steam. The leading Ironborn flagship disappeared behind a sunflower bloom of orange. When the glare faded, only floating timbers remained. The sea fight became a chaos tableau. Brazen hulls colliding, boarding planks clattering, shouts in half a dozen tongues. Tyrion saw Queen of Fire hopscotch, a wave height, and crash down beside a longer, leaner vessel, whose prow sported barbed rams shaped like kraken tentacles. Greyjoy reavers, through grapnels. Unsullied formed shield wall at the rail. Lightning speared mast top, splitting it, showering sparks onto canvas already dripping tar. Tyrion's mind raced. Dragons shattered wooden fleets, aye. But scorpions mounted on slick decks could kill dragons too, and Euron possessed dozens. Better to blind than burn. He spotted a rack of oil jars near the midship's catapult. Flagged 2 archers. Aim for the scorpion limbers, he bawled. Set their ropes alight. Gears jam. Bows cannot draw. Whether his words carried he could not tell. Thunder swallowed punctuation. A reaver lunged over rail, axe descending. Tyrion ducked. The blade bit deck. He drove a dagger upward into the man's thigh. Blood spurted. The Ironborn stumbled. Grey Worm's spear finished him with a downward thrust to the throat. Tyrion backed against Brightfire, who crouched low, teeth bared. Steam hissed as rain met rising body heat. Another reaver hesitated at the sight of the dragonette, then turned and fled, rather than test his fate. Drogon's third pass severed Euron's battle line. 2 more Kraken sigil ships burned. Yet the storm favored Greyjoy's sails, their crews borne to wind and trough. They closed again, lashing hulls to Daenerys' supply galleys, clambering across like barnacled wolves. Above, Viserion shrieked. A scorpion bolt lodged deep in his shoulder. He faltered, banking in pain, and nearly clipped the mainmast. Tyrion's breath hitched. Drogon roared fury and drowned the offending scorpion, but Viserion wobbled toward the sea, trailing blood. No, Daenerys whispered. Only Tyrion close enough to hear. She signaled, and Brightfire responded before Tyrion could restrain. The young dragon vaulted skyward, a pale comet, ignoring the wound in his flank. Tyrion was yanked by the harness, boots leaving deck. He clutched leather straps with stubborn fervor. They cleared the rail, wind shrieking. Up, up, he shouted, leaning forward. Brightfire pumped wings, trailing silver ribbons of rain. They shot over the Kraken vessel where Euron himself commanded from the quarterdeck, his patch-covered eye glittering. Tyrion glimpsed the man's grin twist upward at the sight of rider and fledgling. A trumpet call. 5. Sharp. From hidden canvas wells, Ironborn hauled nets, weighted with lead, tossing them skyward. Not meant for Brightfire, they angled for Viserion's slower, injured sweep. Dot. Tyrion reacted without thought. Dracarys, he bellowed, pointing. Brightfire spat pale flame that caught the trailing edge of one net mid-air. Oiled hemp ignited, cascading sparks down over Ironborn archers. Crossbow strings snapped as grease boiled. Viserion passed the flaming curtain, bolt still buried, but free of entanglement. A second net soared. Tyrion dragged reins, wheeling Brightfire perpendicular to the wind, but the gusts hammered small wings side on. He felt rather than heard the strain of new-knit bone in Brightfire's shoulder. The dragon shrilled. They lost altitude. Rain blinded Tyrion as sea rushed up huge and violent. He braced for impact. Then Rhaegal was there, jaws closing on the net's tail, crushing weights to powder bone. Green flame burst, incinerating the whole contraption. In the shockwave, Rhaegal's wingtip clipped Brightfire. Tyrion slammed into saddle rim, ribs cracking. Pain lanced, white and immediate. He clung with numb fingers. Wind changed. The gale's heart moved east, dropping a lull like exhausted lungs. Rain eased to needles. Tyrion blinked sight clear. Below, wreckage bobbed, burning in patches. Euron's flagship still floated but rudderless. Its masts had collapsed inward like picked bones. Drogon hovered above Stern Castle, smoke venting from nostrils. Even from altitude, Tyrion heard shouts of terror as decks cleared of Ironborn. He guided Brightfire into a glide toward Queen of Fire. Decks slick with blood and rain unfolded beneath them. Sailors reached upward to steady landing. When talons touched timber, the young dragon sagged, wings drooping. Tyrion slid off, nearly collapsed. Only Grey Worm's quick arms supported him. "Ribs," Tyrion gasped. "Not fatal." He gestured toward Brightfire. "Check his shoulder," still oozing. Daenerys approached, face ashen in dawn's bruised light. "Viserion." "Alive," Tyrion answered. Bolt buried but depth looked shallow. He grimaced at stabbing pain inside. Drogon stands guard as regal escorts. Grey Worm relayed fresh orders. Unsullied ranks swept remaining reavers overboard. The gale receded, leaving the sea strewn with debris and char. Dragon-kindled fog clung low, tinted orange in surviving fires. Above, the comet still burned, a wound across heaven. When the last Ironborn ship sank, Daenerys turned to Tyrion. "You saved Viserion." "We saved Viserion," he corrected, wincing as he straightened. Brightfire's flame, Rhaegal's teeth. "We made a fine dance." She laid a hand on his forearm. "Rest. Battle's done." Her tone disguised worry poorly. "I'll send the healer from Silk Shadow to bind your ribs." "Later," Tyrion said, though vision blurred. "First account losses, inventory supplies." "Scorpions destroyed half our pitchstock." Daenerys responded with raised brow. "You rule alive for the moment, Lord Hand." "Delegate." "Once." She summoned Missandei while Tyrion allowed Grey Worm to usher him toward infirmary hold, Brightfire limping behind. And in the hours that followed, riders and riggers worked feverishly. Dozens lay dead, more wounded, but the fleet itself survived. Bolt removed. Viserion snarled at stitches yet accepted them. Daenerys whispering Valyrian lullabies, as she might to a restless foal. Brightfire slept after poultice application, tail tucked under wing. Tyrion dozed, seated against the hold wall, breathing shallow. Tar smoke stung his lungs. By sunset, a quiet fell. Unlike peace, more an exhausted ceasefire. Waves lapped gentle as kittens now. Clouds broken into purple shards revealing an indigo vault above. The reek of charred pine and human fat lingered. Tyrion limped topside with Grey Worm's help. Century's first stars pricked open. The fleet, though battered, pressed on under shortened sail. In the west, a faint outline rose. Jagged peaks, volcanic, black even at dusk. Dragonstone, still leagues distant, but undeniable. "Home," Daenerys whispered from the bow, clutching the rail with both hands. Maybe she spoke to Drogon gliding overhead. Maybe to ghosts of her parents. Maybe to no one at all. Tyrion moved to her side, gaze fixed on that dark silhouette. The ribs grated but held. Storm's End lies south, King's Landing beyond the narrow sea throat. But Dragonstone stands sentinel, he murmured. Once foothold is ours, ravens will sprout rumors faster than wildfire. Daenerys nodded. By week's end, banners across Westeros debate whether to bend knee or risk Dragonflame. Yet my worry lies north. "The dead?" Tyrion asked. Her face tightened. Melisandre's visions return nightly. Ice spiders big as hounds, whites in the thousands. A wall of blue-eyed silence moving south. He shivered though air had warmed. "I believe her. Fires show truth more than any scribe's ink." He flexed bandaged hand. "When we sit the Iron Throne, we must ride north at once." "We?" She echoed. "You and I, Drogon and Brightfire." He exhaled. 5 hours upon the wind, we could strafe a corpse host from flank to flank. Daenerys' mouth curved, not smile precisely, more a solemn promise shaped on lips. For an instant, he saw 10,000 leagues of snowscape mirrored in violet irises. And now, they anchored in Blackwater Bay's outer margin, 4 mornings later. Dawn mist clung to basalt cliffs like a second skin while gulls wheeled against sunburst. Dragonstone, seat of House Targaryen, rose before them in all its drear, magnificent austerity. Towers shaped like twisting dragons, courtyards paved in cracked obsidian, staircases narrow as spear shafts. Smoke still seeped from chimneys, though 15 years' dust lay in great halls. Stannis Baratheon's garrison had evacuated months earlier, pulled east to fight Aegon's surprise landfall. Only a skeleton crew of Castellans remained. Daenerys did not wait for tide charts. Drogon landed on the basalt beach first, sending sentries tumbling in panic. Tyrion followed on Brightfire, ribs protesting. They dismounted as gray worms advance boats scraped shore. The air smelled of wet rock and dried kelp. The castle guard surrendered instantly, mere 24 bulked with rusting mail, no will to test dragons. Keys changed hands. Daenerys strode through the main gate, each bootstep echoing across vaulted dark. Cobwebs draped corridor arches. Salt crust glittered on walls where storms had bored through roofs. She mounted stair after stair until they emerged on the windswept bastion overlooking the narrow sea pass. There lay the painted table, carved by Aegon the Conqueror, covered with stained tarps. Tyrion peeled canvas away. Dust puffed. Westeros unfurled beneath their fingers, ridges and rivers raised in relief, each kingdom labeled in Valyrian glyphs. Candlelight traced dragon roots across a map older than their great-grandfathers. Daenerys brushed the stormlands with one thumb, smudging gray powder. Aegon's siglines run here. She touched the reach. Their harvest will not reach Cersei by land. She moved to the neck. The north still bleeds from Bolton knives. Finally, her fingers stopped on King's Landing. I was born the night my brother and I fled. I will return before this moon dies. Tyrion studied the city carved there. Tiny spires painted gold leaf, now rubbed dull. Cersei still holds caches of wildfire hidden by my father. She may burn her own people, rather than let dragons liberate them. Bam? Then we choke the vials before they ignite, Daenerys said simply. Her eyes lifted. We have you. He laughed once, dry, but genuine. Small hand to cork so many bottles, your grace. Small but cunning? She replied. And dull. Days passed in a flurry of occupation. Blacksmith forges long cold restarted, fed by coal offloaded from Sothoryos holds. Quartermasters inventoried tunnels, carved beneath Dragonmont. They found storehouses Stannis never emptied. Barrels of salt pork, casks of Dornish red, crates of black glass arrowheads. Tyrion oversaw distribution, quills scurrying faster than wound ribs light. Daenerys toured ramparts on Dragonback, establishing fearsome routine. Each dawn she and Drogon swept the sea lanes. Each dusk Brightfire shadowed them, practicing formation patterns aided by tether ropes between dragons. Viserion's shoulder wound healed to mottled scar. Rhaegal's scale lost in battle regrew paler than neighbors. The four rarely flew all together, conserving legend for the day it mattered. Messages poured. Northern ravens from Winterfell, carried by wildling couriers under Stark banners. Jon Snow, now proclaimed king in the north, requested parley at White Harbor. Tyrion smiled at that parchment. Sansa must have whispered practical counsel into her brother's ear. He drafted response inviting Jon to Dragonstone, offering dragonglass in exchange for allegiance. He sealed with his hybrid ring. Another raven bore the Lannister lion impressed in red wax, Cersei's hand. Her letter, penned in vicious flourish, demanded immediate surrender of the pretender Daenerys Stormborn and the dwarf regicide. She promised titles and pardon for any captain delivering their heads. Tyrion read it aloud in the council chamber, pausing for effect at each insult. Usurping harlot, grotesque assassin, bastard of bestial sin. Dario roared laughter. Daenerys merely folded the letter and fed it to a brazier. Still, Tyrion felt cold finger on his spine. Cersei's desperation bred brilliance. With Euron diminished, she would devise new alliances. He doubled harbor watch, posted braziers along cliffs to light at first sight of sails, and instructed unsullied sappers to flood tunnels under gatehouse with brine, lest saboteurs attempt entry. One noon the gateward announced arrival of a single rider waving a white banner quartered with a black field. House Baratheon of Storm's End. Strange. Since Storm's End lay under Aegon's control, Tyrion rode Brightfire to outer court to greet envoy. The rider dismounted, a lank youth in cracked cuirass, hair black as coal, eyes storm gray. He removed gauntlet, knelt. "Gendry Waters," he said, voice shaking. "Bastard of King Robert. I rode across Blackwater Bay with tidings. Queen Cersei sealed wildfire within hidden tunnels beneath King's Landing. She will ignite once dragons breach walls." His gaze flitted to Brightfire, swallowed. "I served the Brotherhood without banners. Thoros saw this in flames before he died. We tried to reach King Aegon, but his lines tighten. Only by sea could I escape." Tyrion exchanged glance with Grey Worm. "If true, you have risked much." "I would not see my father's city burned from spite," Gendry said. "Nor children roasted a second time." Tyrion escorted him to Daenerys. The queen listened, face unreadable, then surprised them both. She asked Gendry to stand, invited him to share ale, questioned him gently about forge skills. Learning he had been apprentice armorer in Flea Bottom, she ordered quarters for him in the castle smithy. "The son of a king will forge the steel that frees his people," she said. That night Tyrion joined her on the windswept parapet by the old bell tower. The sky lay clear. Stars like spilled salt. Below, waves crashed luminous against basalt, each impact punctuated by deep natural rumble inside Dragonmont Daramont. "Placing trust in a bastard with salt in his beard," Tyrion said. "Bold." Daenerys leaned on rampart. "A long time ago a bastard named Jon Snow spied for Alliser Thorne. So thought his brothers, and yet beneath suspicion beat the truest heart at Castle Black. Blood matters less than choice." She looked at Tyrion. "Besides, if he means ill, I have dragons." He nodded. "And if he means well, then he will help us smother wildfire," she said, "and build the peace after." She tipped chin upward. "What of your peace, Tyrion? When all this ends, how will your heart choose?" The question caught him bare. He had imagined victory, revenge, survival, but seldom stillness. He saw Shay's face laughing in candlelight. Swallowed grief. "I will serve," he said after too long. "Perhaps I will build a council chamber where jesters speak truth daily, so kings remember humility." "A good idea." Tyrion surprised himself by reaching to touch her elbow. "And you, your grace? When no throne remains to claim." She considered the infinite overhead. "I will teach the world to seed its soil with broken spears, plant orchards where gallows once stood. I will watch my dragons soar old and wise across lands that no longer fear them." She paused. "And then I will fly west of sunset to see what lies beyond maps." Tyrion smiled. "Take me. I owe the world nothing after this." She smiled back. And in that moment they were not queen and hand, but orphaned souls the world had scourged, daring to imagine a tomorrow free of chains. And 3 weeks ripened into late summer. Jon Snow arrived on a Braavosi clinker, escorted by northern longships under Mormont flags. With him came Davos Seaworth and a small retinue of wildlings led by Tormund Giantsbane. Their rowboats beached on black sand at dusk, while Drogon perched on the ramparts above, huge as the ridge itself, yellow eyes watching. The first meeting in the Great Hall was as tense as Tyrion had predicted. Jon's cloak still bore stains of hard travel. His eyes assessed dragon and queen with soldiers' pragmatism. Davos spoke of dead marching. Tormund growled that big woman knight kept fighting at the wall. Tyrion mediated, voice even, ribs almost healed enough to forget. Daenerys offered dragon glass and fire. Jon offered northern allegiance, conditioned on her aid against the Night King before any southern war. The debate rolled like thunder over the painted table. Finally, Tyrion stepped in. "Your Grace," he addressed Daenerys, "if the army of the dead overwhelms the north, Iron Throne will be a seat atop graves. Promise aid. Take Jon as Warden of the North beneath your crown. You lose no honor and gain an ice wall of defense." He turned to Jon. "And you, my lord. Queen's dragons and unsullied spears bolster your crumbling garrisons. You form shield wall while she breaks Cersei's hold. Both wars win or none." Silence followed. Jon's gray eyes measured Daenerys. Something old and stubborn eased in his jaw. "I kneel," he said, and did. "House Stark swears fealty so long as your war becomes ours." Daenerys accepted, touched, and wary. "Rise, Lord of Winterfell, king in the north no more, but first among my wardens." Alliance forged, they shared wine. Brightfire nosed between benches, purring for scraps. Tormund fled gibbering and returned with haunch of goat, offering it like tribute. That night Tyrion sat alone in the rookery, quill scratching parchment. A letter he began to shay, but never finished. Instead he wrote to Sansa Stark, mindful of memories in King's Landing gardens. He told her winter's hope approached on dragon wings, that her brother lived and fought, and that the world still had room for wolves. He sealed with his hybrid sigil and handed the scroll to the swiftest raven. And preparations quickened. Gendry oversaw casting of scorpion-sized bolts tipped with dragon glass. Davos coordinated shipbuilding in Blackwater Bay, converting captured ironborn keels into troop carriers. Jon sparred with Grey Worm on the beach, exchanging tactics, shield wall versus fouling stud. Tyrion spent nights redrawing invasion routes on fresh parchment. One arrow north to Eastwatch with dragons, one arrow south along Roser Road with Unsullied and Dothraki. One curved strike, brave Ossi Marines through Massey's Hook to threaten King's Landing Harbor. One crisp dawn Daenerys summoned Tyrion to cliffs above Driftmark Strait. Wind rattled grass. Surf hammered rock below. She wore simpler garb, black riding leathers, no crown. Drogon lounged behind like a dark hillock. Brightfire preened nearby. She spoke without preamble. "I dreamt of you," she said. "That tends to end badly for dreamers," Tyrion answered gently. "Not this dream." She faced him. "The world burned, but in the ashes rose a council. Dragon riders, wolf lords, ironborn smiths, summer islanders. You sat at its head, not as hand but as equal. A king of quills, you called yourself. Rulers came to ask your judgment and left fearing your jest. I saw laughter rebuild towers." Tyrion swallowed. The sea breeze tasted of iron and salt. "Dreams make liars of us. Or prophets." She stepped closer. "If I die north of the wall, promise to keep dragons aloft. Teach Brightfire to guard people, not burn them. Teach Jon's children what fairness costs. Promise me." The request struck deeper than any command. "I promise," Tyrion said, voice ragged. "Swear by fire and by blood." She insisted. He placed palm on Brightfire's warm neck. "By fire and blood both." She touched his cheek. Just once, soft as falling ash. Then, mounted Drogon. The beast launched, gales whipping her hair. Brightfire followed. Smaller silhouette against sunrise. Tyrion watched them ascend until clouds swallowed wings. He pressed hand to chest where a chain of 3 dragons rested. Somewhere beneath cracked rib bone a new promise nested, fierce as any hatchling. And autumn's edge crept earlier than expected. Frost etched basalt parapets before dawn. Ravens returned from King's Landing. Wildfire caches located under Sept of Baelor ruins, under Guildhall of Alchemists, under Dragon Pit. Gendry's forged dragonglass javelins gleamed in torchlight. Northern wind smelled of snow, though hills remained green. At Council Daenerys unsheathed a blade newly forged. Valyrian steel reforged from Ned Stark's ice, now named Requieter by Jon. Its smoky ripples caught lamplight. She laid it across the painted table. "Tomorrow, I fly north with Jon, Drogon, Rhaegal. We retrieve white evidence for southern lords and thin undead ranks before next moon. Tyrion, you sail south to Storm's End, parley with Aegon. Offer marriage pact or peaceful seat if he withdraws siege and marches with us. Grey Worm accompanies you with half unsullied. Then? Tyrion raised brow. Splitting forces when Cersei licks her wounds? Bold again. The only way, she replied. If marriage merges our causes, fewer die. If not, Storm's End falls eventually. But not before we face winter. He inclined head. I'll try to charm the young dragon. If he proves uncharmable, I'll drink him under the table and sign the treaty while he sleeps. A faint smile teased the queen's lips. She placed a small scroll in his hand, her own marriage terms in High Valyrian, sealed black. For his eyes only. Tyrion tucked it into an inner pocket. Jon clasped his wrist. Watch your ribs. Watch your queen, Tyrion returned. They embraced. Wolf and lion beneath carved dragons. That night, he and Brightfire shared last practice flight. They looped Dragonmon's smoking cone, skimmed sea foam, then hovered above Castle Keep lit golden by braziers. He let rein slack. Brightfire banked of his own accord, wings whisper quiet. Tyrion felt the dragon not as mount but as extension of his breath. Two beings singing in bone and blood. Stars wheeled overhead like coins tossed by heedless gods. He wondered whether destiny's ledger ever balanced, or whether some cosmic scribe kept adding crimes and heroics until the page burned. Maybe that final conflagration birthed new worlds. Maybe it simply warmed cold nights. Either way, he rode a dragon and felt alive, and that sufficed. Dawn. Die. The fleet readied. Tyrion stood on the wooden mole where supply barges offloaded grain. Grey Worm's detachments marched aboard transports, shields gleaming. Brightfire perched on foremast of the swift galley Silver Wyvern, tail coiled round base of crosstrees. Braavosi sailors muttered prayers to the many-faced god, though whether for protection or quick release none could say. Daenerys descended from Keep ramparts astride Drogon. Jon, on Rhaegal, behind. Viserion followed. Scars pale streaks. The spectacle halted all labor. Men froze mid-coil, mouths open. Drogon flared massive wings, sending breakers crashing against quay. Spray rained over Tyrion, but he remained still, chain of office glinting. Daenerys looked down. No words, just a nod heavier than any speech. Tyrion bowed from waist, ignoring rib ache. Brightfire answered with baritone trumpeting. The war cry of a dragon not yet full grown but certain of purpose. Sails unfurled. Ropes groaned. Dragons rose. Two forces parted. One into the northern blue, one into the southern haze. Tyrion felt the island recede, felt history dig claws into future, pulling. On the quarterdeck of Silver Wyvern he unfolded his private map, marking first leg to Tarth, second to Storm's End. The distance seemed trivial, measured by charcoal line, yet monstrous in events it might birth. He traced finger across sea, remembered battles past, storms survived, promises made. Brightfire swooped overhead, casting dwarf-sized shadow across paper. Tyrion squinted up, shielding eyes. Wings beat thrice, steady, resolute. The dragon glided onward, pointing bow to destiny. Tyrion followed, tucking map away, stepping to the helm where he could smell pitch, tar and salt. The holy trinity of voyages. The ship leaned into current. Wind tightened canvas. Humming in the rigging like an overture's first violins. Tyrion closed his eyes, listening. Beneath the whistle and creak, he heard an echo of Varys' riddle. Power resides where men believe. He opened his eyes, watching Brightfire carve the sky, and believed that power could yet be bent to mercy. And so, the hand of a monster, the wing of a fledgling, and the hopes of kingdoms sailed into waters redolent with old blood and newer dreams, writing lines no maester could foresee, their story half told upon an endless scroll, glimmering beneath the comet's dying embers. Okay. The silver wyvern slipped through the pre-dawn haze like a needle through silk. Her single lateen sail pulling hard on fresh northerlies, rolling down the narrow sea. Tyrion stood at the larboard rail, gloved fingers light on Brightfire's chest harness, while the dragonet flew parallel to the ship, half a spear length above the water. Every third wing beat he skimmed the wave tops with outstretched talons, just to feel the hiss of spray climb his claws. Moonlight silvered his milk-white scales. The wound along his shoulder, once angry red, had faded to a pale seam no thicker than embroidery silk. For hours, the only sounds were the slosh of bow wake and the creak of oarlocks from the unsullied troop galleys following astern. Grey Worm had packed 300 spearmen and a handful of translators onto those tubs. Just enough, Tyrion hoped, to look serious without appearing to threaten Storm's End. Only a few Braavosi outriders accompanied them now. Most of the Iron Bank's warships had peeled away southwest to shadow the Roserod coast and look menacing near the Mander mouth. Tyrion preferred it that way. A lighter footprint, room to maneuver. Fewer eyes watching him rehearse speeches in the dark. He was on the third revision of his opening line. Your Grace, Prince Aegon nephew. If the tales prove true, I have come to turn swords into dragons, if you will let me. When Brightfire gave a sharp chirrup and angled upward. The dwarf followed his gaze. Far ahead, where star-spangled sky met sea, a dot of amber flared, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. A lantern shuddered once, then twice more in rapid sequence. Signal, Tyrion muttered. He raised a speaking trumpet and hailed the forecastle. Douse bow lights. Steer 4 points to port. That beacon may be friend, or may be kraken. Orders repeated down the deck. The wyvern eased into new heading. Brightfire circled, impatient, but obeyed Tyrion's whistle to hold position. 10. Slow minutes crawled by. Another flash, this time behind them, to starboard. And then a third, dead ahead again. A triangle of lights fencing them in. Grey Worm appeared at his elbow, expression carved from basalt. Ambush, or greeting. Tyrion tried to sound calm, though pulse throbbed in his throat. But 3 welcoming lanterns in waters overrun by pirates? It smells of Euron Greyjoy's tricks. Benda. The unsullied commander considered and said, Then back? Better, confuse. Tyrion turned to the helmsman. Belay previous course. Throw the helm over. Quarter turn starboard. Hoist the Lannister lion. Aye, the lion. Over our Targaryen banner. Let them wonder which cousin wears which hat tonight. Sailors scrambled, ropes rasping. Moments later, the golden lion on crimson cloth snapped in the wind. Tyrion allowed himself a grim smile. Cersei's own emblem as decoy against Cersei's own allies. If fate must play dice, at least let the dice roll cheekily. The ruse worked for precisely 50 heartbeats. Then black shapes materialized in the mist. Low, lean hulls cutting across their bow on converging course. Oars feathering like insect legs. Silence made them eerie. No shouted cadence, no drum. Only the hiss of wet wood. Grey Worm barked in high Valyrian. Unsullied shields locked along the rail. Spears angled out. Sailors ran to loose the single catapult strapped near the mainmast, but Tyrion waved them down. Slaughter by accident would doom every word he intended to speak at Storm's End. He stepped to the prow and lifted both arms, rain-spattered cloak flaring. Ahoy, the cutters! He bellowed through the trumpet. Stand off. This is the hand of Queen Daenerys Stormborn, en route to negotiate with Prince Aegon. Show colors or taste dragon's breath. For an instant, nothing. Then torches erupted along the stranger's gunwale, lighting a banner. Black field, red 3-headed dragon, not of Daenerys, but of old Targaryen kings. Below it, a white, sunburst sigil. Golden Company, the mercenaries who had crossed with Aegon. A baritone voice rang out. Hand of the Pretender, lower sail and prepare to be escorted. Prince Aegon welcomes his uncle under guard. Uncle, Tyrion thought wryly. Half the realm still called him monster, but blood was a malleable accounting when crowns were at stake. He cupped hands and shouted back. "Force an escort, and I'll have my hatchling char the lot of you. I seek parley, not chains." From behind the blaze, a second voice, lighter, perhaps even amused. "Parley you shall have, Lord Tyrion. But in these seas, caution is currency. You may keep your dragon. My prince keeps his fleet." A pause. "If we wished your death, you'd already decorate coral." He could scarcely argue. Tyrion signaled the catapult crew to stand down, then beckoned Brightfire closer. The dragon glided to the stern and perched on the mizzen yard, tail flicking. Grey Worm's phalanx relaxed one fraction, but remained at ready. Within half an hour, the Wyvern found herself in the middle of a small convoy. 4 Golden Company cutters fore and aft, 20 sellswards aboard each. They maintained arrow-knock silence. Tyrion spent daylight sharpening his pitch. Over midday wine he even practiced smiling without sardonic twist. Brightfire dozed on deck, belly up to autumn sun, heedless of wary stares. By dusk Storm's End hove into view, first as a gray bruise on the horizon, then a distinct crown of thick battlements perched on a promontory that jutted like a clenched fist into storm-tossed surf. Wind carried tang of seaweed and distant pine. The huge drum tower, twice the width of any in Westeros, loomed, its arrow slits like rows of black teeth. The last time Tyrion had seen this fortress, he'd been a child trailing his father's war retinue during Robert's rebellion, half forgotten behind gold banners and Lannister pageantry. It looked no friendlier now. A boom of war horns greeted them, deep enough to rattle deck planks. Iron chains splashed, then rose between hidden pylons, closing the narrow harbor mouth. The Golden Company captain, an associate with forked beard bleached white, signaled permission for Tyrion's galley alone to pass. The chains clanked down, water foamed. The Wyvern crept through, oars sheathed, propelled only by a gentle breeze. Dozens of trebuchets lined the curtain wall platform. Most were unmanned, but 2 actually tracked Brightfire's lazy arc with their throwing arms. Tyrion felt the prickle of invisible crosshairs on his spine. One twitchy bowman could ruin peace before it started. They anchored at the inner quay beneath walls painted amber by torch flame. A boarding bridge clattered into place. Tyrion adjusted embroidered doublet, black velvet trimmed with red silk dragons, lent by Daenerys' quartermaster, and slipped a silver flask into belt. No armor. Parley demanded vulnerability. He left his dagger below deck. Grey Worm likewise doffed shield and spear, though Tyrion suspected the unsullied commander could strangle a knight bare-handed before the man blinked. When Tyrion set foot on the quay, the stone felt colder than expected, or perhaps his nerves magnified chill. Shouts echoed within gatehouse chambers, heavy gates groaned open. A small honor guard emerged, lancers in black surcoats edged gold, each emblazoned with 3-headed dragon and a pale shooting star. Between them strode Prince Aegon Targaryen, or the boy claiming that name. He looked about 19, taller than Jon Snow, but less broad. Clean-shaven save a narrow shadow on his upper lip. His hair, dark with a glimmer of royal purple in certain angles, fell to shoulders in loose waves. He wore brigandine dyed a soft Valyrian gray, chased with narrow bands of gold at collar and sleeve. No crown, only a slender circlet of black iron. A plain gesture. Warrior first, king second. When he reached Tyrion, he bowed just enough to acknowledge height difference without mockery. "Lord Tyrion, uncle, if fates weave true. Welcome to Storm's End." Voice modulated, a touch of the reach in vowels. He'd been tutored well. Tyrion bowed deeper than etiquette required. "Your Grace, I thank you for escort rather than execution." Aegon's mouth quirked. "I'd have thanked you for not threatening to torch my sailors, but we've survived worse introductions." Grey Worm tensed. Tyrion lifted one finger. "A jest in poor weather. No harm meant." "None taken." Aegon extended his arm in knight's clasp. "By..." Tyrion accepted. The prince's grip was strong, palms calloused. Not a soft pretender then. "You wish counsel? I have council chambers. And wine, assuming Connington hasn't drunk the cellars dry." They walked through gates wide enough for 3 wagons abreast, past granite walls thicker than a Braavosi fishing smack is long. The air inside smelled of damp and burnt sausages. Torches flickered along tunnels until they emerged in a circular courtyard at the tower's heart. Above, the sky traced a narrow ring of deepening blue. Gulls wheeled, crying. Tyrion glimpsed repair scaffolding along upper battlements, evidence of recent siege damage prior to Aegon's arrival. Inside, tapestries covered cracks in plaster. Dragons over trident, dragons atop Harrenhal, Ares crowned and smiling. A mural the old king himself would have scoured half the kingdom to obtain. Tyrion wondered if that was Connington's doing. Likely. They climbed spiral stairs to a hall, walled with pale limestone. Servants lit brazier pits of charcoal. Long trestle tables had been shoved aside, replaced by one modest round table, and 4 carved chairs. Aegon gestured Tyrion toward the left-hand seat. Grey Worm remained standing behind. 3 more figures entered. John Connington, hair gone steel white but posture ramrod. Miles Toyne, Sellsword commander in blackscale armor, and a woman Tyrion recognized belatedly as Septa Lemore, once wet nurse and secret tutor during Aegon's exile. She now wore plain gray robes cinched with scarlet cord, eyes appraising. Aegon poured wine himself, an unpretentious act that nevertheless unsettled Miles Toyne, whose brows climbed behind his goblet. "You've come to bargain," Aegon said, seating himself opposite Tyrion. "Yet twice you served Lannisters who spilt trident blood. Tell me why you deserve trust." Tyrion sipped. "Arbor gold again. Delightful. I served king and family because I was born to both. Both repaid me with death warrants. Blood familiarity can teach loyalty, or it can teach caution. I learned both. My sister hunts me. My brother's ashes blew off Blackwater. My father I slew with this very finger." He tapped the stubby digit on stemware. "I stand here alive because dragons take truer measure of men than lions ever did." Connington grunted approval. Toyne remained poker-faced. Aegon leaned back, but index finger traced rim of his cup thoughtfully. "Dragons," he echoed. "Tell me of the 4 I saw from Dornish scouts." "They claim one white beast with gold wings carries a dwarf no taller than a squire's son." "That beast," Tyrion said, "is Brightfire." He nodded to the open lancet window. On cue, Brightfire swooped across the courtyard outside, low enough that his wingtips nearly brushed flagstones. Servants shrieked. Toyne's hand flew to hilt. Only Aegon refrained from flinch, though his eyes widened. "He hatched for me," Tyrion continued softly. "Chose me. There is meaning in that. A meaning I offer to you. And to Daenerys," Septa Lemore said. First words thus far. Warm, musical voice, yet laced with iron. "You come bearing marriage proposal, I think. A union of dragons to end war?" Tyrion produced the Queen's sealed scroll, signed by her grace in her own hand. Terms, equitable. She offers joint rule, shared counsel, legitimacy of your claim recognized by Dragonfire itself. In return you swear half her army may march north to meet Winter's dead. "Thou." Aegon broke seal, eyes scanning swift. Connington leaned in, whispering. Toyne frowned but kept silent. Grey Worm's gaze flickered between faces like a hawk. The prince finished reading and set parchment down. "You speak of Winter's dead. I've heard tales, white stories carried south by Karstark deserters. Hard to credit when one faces Cersei's tangible treachery." Tyrion shrugged. "Tangible treachery burns quickly under dragon flame. Cold is slower, surer. Daenerys flies north even now to prove truth, bringing the king in the north himself. When they return with a white, you will see." He gestured at scroll. "Better to have pledged before proof than after, to show courage not convenience." Silence draped the table like velvet. Finally Toyne spoke, voice scratchy as gravel. "We left Essos to put this boy on the Iron Throne, not share it." Tyrion met his eyes. "Boy? He sits this table a prince. Share a throne, and he rises a king. Kings may grant charters to sellsword companies, grant lands even, in perpetuity. I imagine the Golden Company's veteran captains tire of wandering. Damin." Toyne's jaw shifted. Connington glared disapproval, but remained mum. Aegon laced fingers, elbows on table. "Perhaps. Yet my followers bled for independence, not vassalage. Independence is a winter coat, Tyrion countered. Warm at first, yet lonely once bone-deep chill sets in. You could keep the coat and freeze, or share a hearth and thaw. I propose hearths enough for all. Septa Lemore smiled faintly. Pretty metaphor. Imp of Casterly Rock. Thank you, Septa. Figures of speech cost less than armies. Aegon exhaled. I will consider. You may lodge inside walls while I weigh counsel. 3 days. 3 days, Tyrion agreed. He rose, wincing at rib ache. Send word if debate requires wine. My flask is impartial. Endo. Grey Worm led him to quarters arranged hastily in the south tower. A modest suite of 2 chambers, one already stocked with parchment, quills, and even a case of Corthine ink. Connington's courtesy, no doubt. Tyrion collapsed onto a feather bed that smelled faintly of cedar. Bright fire curled near the hearth. Outside, wind keened round arrow slits. Sleep came in snatches, flashes of wildfire beneath King's Landing, faces of men afire screaming. Shay in golden chains. Daenerys drifting beyond wall on dragonback, her cheeks blue with cold. At dawn he surrendered and rose, stoking coals. Grey Worm stood sentinel by door, stoic as ever. News? Tyrion asked. Watch reports Raven to King's Landing broke net. Unknown sender. Grey Worm frowned. Possibly Golden Company warning Cersei. Tyrion cursed under breath. An ultimatum from Cersei could harden Aegon's heart. He penned quick cipher to Daenerys via fastest Raven. Aegon cautious. Sells word grip. Donner no. Cersei may incite. Show white swiftly. He sealed with twin dragon lion ring and dispatched. Morning Council summoned him again. This time in Storm's End's ancient war room, stabbing into the drum tower's belly. The great round table of past Baratheons still dominated, its surface gouged by decades of sword points marking enemy positions. Connington, Toyne, Lemore, and 2 new faces awaited. Lord Haldon Halfmaester, lean as a reed, and a Tyrell cousin named Elise, whose green satin sleeves proclaimed coin over cause. Aegon entered last, bearing a rolled parchment of his own. A raven from Cersei, he announced. She recognizes me a fraud, brands Daenerys kinslayer, invites my head to Blackwater banquet. In exchange, she promises titles for all who betray the dragon harlot. He tossed the scroll. It bounced, unfurling to reveal the green wax of a queen's hand. She also offers marriage, herself to me, widow of Robert, to unite Baratheon line with supposed Targaryen cousin. My crown, her city. Toyne barked a laugh. She must be drunk on wildfire. Or desperate. Connington growled. A cornered lion leaps furthest. Aegon looked to Tyrion. Your sister's words? Inevitably, Tyrion admitted. She believes every solution emerges from marriage or murder, often both. Elise Tyrell fluttered lashes. Practical. A queen with fortress and fleet. Fleet? Tyrion scoffed. Euron's tattered remains, maybe a dozen hulls. Fortress filled with green hellfire. He tapped the gouged table. If King's Landing burns, who inherits ashes? You, Prince Aegon? Or the dead stumbling down the King's Road? Haldon cleared throat. The offer is poison, but some lords may taste. He indicated Toyne. Our Sells words require gold beyond next moon. If Cersei dumps Lannister coffers on Storm's End's wharf, loyalties flicker. So we must finalize decision before she bribes half your captains, Tyrion said, eyes on Aegon. Show unity and the realm follows. Dither and you become footnote. Lemore folded hands. One obstacle. Marriage to Daenerys sets aunt with nephew. Incest remains stain in southern tongues, though Targaryen bloodlines long embraced it. Unions of cousin and nephew have precedent, Connington argued. Baelor the Blessed wed his sisters. He also locked them away forever afterward, Lemore replied dryly, and died fasting. Tyrion raised palm. A per union may suffice. Wed in name, rule in council, bed others in privacy. The small folk only care who taxes them, not who beds whom. All eyes returned to Aegon. The young prince pressed fingertips to temples, lids half closed. Long seconds passed, broken only by muffled gull cries beyond walls. Finally, he spoke. "I will ride with Lord Tyrion to Tarth this afternoon. Neutral ground. There I will meet his queen under truce. If I see her white-proof, and if her dragons treat me as kin, alliance sealed." Toyn inhaled to protest, but Connington's gauntlet upon his wrist silenced him. Elise Tyrell's smile faltered, coin purses unopened. Aegon met Tyrion's gaze. "Can your queen meet within 5 days?" Tyrion considered Raven flight, Daenerys' northern sortie, unpredictable winds. But boldness sometimes made fact of fancy. "She will," he said. "And she will bring a white skull if weather forbids icy couriers. Then let us test faith." And now, plans sparked into motion. Tyrion requested quills, ink, prepared duplicate letters. One to Daenerys confirming parley location. Evanfall Hall's old sept, ruined but still shelter enough. And another to Jon Snow urging speed. He wrote to Gendry, detailing new wildfire information gleaned from Storm's End's former artillery master. Apparently Baratheon engineers had mapped every sewer leading to alchemists' vaults. Hours blurred. At midday, Brightfire lifted from courtyard with a single unsullied outrider as passenger. Tyrion's messenger. Westward toward Dragonstone. Scroll sealed in Dragonclaw capsule strapped to saddle. Watching his fledgling fade into cobalt sky, Tyrion felt a pang, like severing own arm. Yet trust required demonstration. He would not meet Daenerys on Tarth with dragon and unsullied both at his back, while Aegon came lightly. The prince's retinue readied. Connington, Toyn, Lemore, one maester, and a mere 50 Golden Company lancers. Their galley, Lady Merax's, waited beyond harbor chain. Tyrion's silver wyvern would accompany, carrying Grey Worm and 15 unsullied for show, not war. The tide turned favorable late afternoon. They glided out from under Storm's End's massive shadow into sunlight mottled by passing clouds. Sea ran calmer than days prior. Gulls bobbed on azure swells, indifferent to royal fates. Aegon joined Tyrion at the forecastle railing. "I read treatises on you," he said suddenly. Maester Theomore's commentaries on the small council. Grand Maester Pycelle's letters to Old Town. He called you cunning but dangerous, a jester with hidden knife. "I expected malice cloaked in wine. Yet you speak as if realm's survival outweighs your own debt of vengeance." Tyrion watched spray pearl the prince's greaves. "I carry vengeance like a stone in the boot, habitual, irritating. But stones rarely win wars. I'd rather plant vineyards, press them into wine, and toast the fools who dragged us to slaughter." Benderswell. Aegon's smile held genuine warmth. "If I sit a throne, I hope you'll visit court. If you marry my queen, I'll hardly have choice." They shared a laugh. For that moment, Tyrion believed this improbable nephew could indeed be catalyst for peace. Noble, but hungry, unscarred by King's Landing's bitter politics. Aegon might temper Daenerys' fire. She might ignite his idealism into action. Below the laughter lurked fear. For he knew fate seldom allowed such symmetry without asking brutal price. And 3 days later, Evenfall Isle rose green and silver in late morning sun. Its limestone cliffs crowned by crumbling watch turrets abandoned since Aegon's conquest. Evenfall Hall itself stood inland, but the ruined sept chosen for parley perched near coastal hamlet, accessible by footbridge. Its stained glass long shattered, yet arched ribs of stone remained, like the bleached skeleton of some giant dove. They anchored in a sheltered cove. Aegon's party disembarked first. Tyrion insisted he follow at equal pace, to dispel notion of one host dominating the other. Grey Worm marched a half-pace behind him, Connington mirrored, Toyn trailing. Septa Lemore carried only a travel satchel, no evident weapon. Up the winding path, they climbed. The septi's roof was gone, but dais and chancel still stood. Wildflowers sprouted between flagstones. Sea wind carried lavender scent and gull cries. A chilly hush hung inside the ruin, as if old prayers clung yet between moss-flecked pillars. No sign of Daenerys. Neither dragon roar nor unsullied horns across water. Tyrion tamped nerves. Her raven should have reached by now, but storms, battles, white hunting, anything could delay. Aegon noticed disquiet. Too soon, perhaps. Perhaps. Tyrion scanned sky. Just gulls. Connington's hand strayed to sword. We may have walked into snare, my prince. Toyne snorted. Imp's snare, maybe. Queen lures us, dragon strike. Tyrion raised palms. If this were ambush, I'd have insisted on meeting at sea, with Brightfire overhead. Patience. Patience lasted 1 hour. Midday sun reached zenith, burning away sweet fragrance, leaving only stifling warmth. Water skins emptied. Toyne paced like caged hound. Grey Worm stood motionless, but sweat glistened along scalp. Then Connington stiffened, pointing east where the windbound channel shimmered. A dark speck blurred the horizon. No. 2, 3, 4. Dragons. Dot. Minutes later they resolved. Drogon foremost, wings casting arrowhead shadow. Rhaegal gold-green beside. Viserion behind, and Brightfire trailing, smaller but swift. Tyrion exhaled relief. Daenerys kept promise. The dragons circled once, as if verifying emptiness, before descending. They landed beyond low ridge to reduce gust hazard. Dust swirled. Jon Snow appeared first, dismounting Rhaegal, wool cloak flapping. Daenerys slid from Drogon's neck, clad in winter-white leathers, silver hair tied high. A leather-wrapped burden strapped behind her saddle. Tyrion advanced, but allowed Aegon primacy. The prince breathed deep, eyes glittering with awe as he stepped onto dais. When Daenerys climbed the broken steps, he bowed formally. She studied him, seeing Rhaegar's ghost perhaps, an inclined head. Aegon of House Targaryen, she greeted. Daenerys Stormborn, he answered. Kin, if the world still values blood. They regarded one another. Tyrion heard gulls overhead and his own heart. Jon Snow approached. Tyrion introduced him swiftly so etiquette couldn't stall momentum. Aegon clasped Jon's forearms. 2 young men, one raised bastard, one raised prince, both heirs of tragedies. The gesture felt like gate hinge creaking open. Daenerys spoke first. You doubt the enemy I fight north of Wall. I brought proof. She gestured to Jon, who unfastened a leather bundle. Within lay a wooden crate bound in bronze clasps. He flicked latch. The lid fell. From inside a severed blue-eyed head hissed, a withered black frozen visage still animated. Jaw snapping, irises glowing glacier blue. Septa Lemore cried out. Connington swore in Valyrian. Toyne drew sword half out of sheath before shoving it back. Aegon stared, color draining. Gods. This fought after its body died, Jon said quietly. Only fire or dragonglass ends it. Thousands mass beyond the wall. Daenerys closed lid with a bang. I will burn them or die trying. But I cannot hold north and south both. Stand with me. Aegon swallowed. Eyes left crate, rose to hers. In silence he paced to edge of altar where Brightfire waited. The white dragon chuffed, extending neck. Tentatively, Aegon laid hand upon the beast's jaw. Brightfire's pupils dilated, then he nuzzled the prince's palm. A murmur swept the onlookers. Kin, Aegon whispered. Tyrion released breath. He did not know he held. Daenerys smiled. Something fragile yet triumphant. Prince Aegon turned. I will share crown and cause. Together. Toyne exhaled sharply. Connington's shoulders eased. Septa Lemore whispered prayer of thanks. Grey Worm gave barely perceptible nod. Then a quarrel whistled from rubble and struck Aegon in throat. Chaos detonated. Another bolt thumped into Lemore's back. Across nave, a half-collapsed cloister erupted with crossbowmen clad in tattered Lannister crimson. Faces smeared ash to blend with stone. Assassins. But Grey Worm hurled himself in front of Tyrion. A bolt glanced off his pauldron. Jon draw blade, shouting. Toyne bellowed orders, Golden Company lancers charging from entryway. Aegon staggered, crimson spurting. Daenerys screamed his name, rushing. As she did, another quarrel aimed at her chest. But Drogon roared, wing rushing forward like a living shield. The bolt pinged, clattering to flagstone. Dragons unleashed. Drogon's furnace breath engulfed cloister. Assassins became shadows flung into brighter fire. Rhaegal pounced on fleeing archer, jaws snapping. Viserion perched on ridge, exhaling frost-tainted flame at distant second wave. Bright fire leapt between Daenerys and fresh assailant, charring him to soot. Tyrion knelt by Aegon, fingers pressed to wound. Blood bubbled around bolt. "Hold," he urged, voice shaky. Jon crouched opposite, ripping cloak to plug gash. But arterial spray fountained. Connington arrived, face-stricken. "Maester," he roared. The maester skidded, fumbling kit. Too late. Aegon's eyes rolled. Lips moved, soundless. Tyrion leaned close. The prince mouthed one word. "Unite." Then he went still. Head lolling. Heartbeat faded under Tyrion's palm, replaced by warm slickness. Daenerys dropped beside them, hands bloody as she cradled nephew's head. Tears streaked soot on her cheeks. Drogon's roars receded as battle ended. Smoke drifted through shattered vault beams. Ash fell like black snow. Septa Lemore lay motionless 15 paces away, Toyne kneeling over her. Sword slack. 5 Golden Company lancers dead. 3 unsullied likewise. The crossbowmen incinerated beyond recognition. Grey Worm surveyed perimeter before signaling all clear. Tyrion wiped blood on cloak hem, chest tight. Alliance birthed and broken in a single breath. He looked at Daenerys, expecting rage. Found instead, utter devastation. She stroked Aegon's hair and whispered lullaby words. Jon stood, jaw clenched. "Who?" he growled, scanning charred corpses. "Whose livery?" "Lannister," Tyrion rasped. "Or men dressed so." Cersei's handwriting. He swallowed bile. She must have been forewarned. Connington's fury burned. "My prince? Dead before crowned. All hope." "Hope endures," Tyrion snapped, surprising even himself. He rose slowly, ribs agony, but mind sharper. Aegon's dying wish. Unite. If his life cannot merge houses, his death will. Daenerys lifted tear-streaked face. "How?" "By telling the realm Aegon pledged marriage. And that pledge stands through you and Jon." He faced them. Queen of Dragons, king who knelt. A political wedding beyond incest stain. Aegon's blood flows diffused yet living. Through Jon Rhaegar's other son. Shock rippled. Jon stiffened. "What are you saying?" Tyrion drew slow breath. Samwell Tarly found record. Rhaegar annulled Elia marriage. Wed Lyanna Stark in secret. "Jon, you are Aegon's half-brother. Bran Stark's Greenseer visions confirm. We planned to reveal once realms steadied, but tragedies rushed timetables." Jon swayed. "I never wanted the crown." "You're not taking it," Tyrion said, gentle but firm. "You're sharing it. Marry Daenerys. Honor Aegon's dying wish. Present united front to destroy Cersei and the dead." Nenderswimed. Connington's eyes brimmed, but he nodded. Toyne listened, calculating. Lemore gone. Others silent. Daenerys looked at Jon, anguish and shock warring. "Our blood? Our cause?" she whispered. Jon swallowed. Stepped to her, blood on hands still. "If it spares the realm more war, I will wed you. For him. For everyone." Tyrion exhaled shakily. A plan forged from heartbreak might yet hold. And that night the Sept's ruin served as funeral pyre. Dragons kindled wood stacked in nave. Aegon's body, shrouded in silk, lay at center. Flames leapt high, throwing orange up columns of sundered roof. The living encircled, heads bowed, ash swirling. As pyre settled to embers, Daenerys spoke. "Blood of my blood, the realm denied you, but your death unites houses. I swear your killers will face dragonfire, and that your dream of peace will live through me." She scattered handful of silver coins. Old dragon stamped. Into coals. Metal hissed. Melted. Jon spoke next, stark quiet. Brother by father's seed, I promise the North rides south to crush the dead and south again to break the tyrant. Your sword will be ours. Connington vowed to follow Queen and King until heart stopped. Toyne pledged the Golden Company's gold and steel to vengeance. Grey Worm, stoic, merely tapped chest across shoulder as unsullied salute. Tyrion said nothing publicly. He'd spoken to Aegon's corpse earlier, apology and promise together. Instead he watched bright fire circle overhead, white wings aglow red in firelight, and wondered how many more pyres the world would need before peace. And now, letters rode ravens that same night, to Storm's End, to Dragonstone, to Braavosi captains, to Ironbank, to Northern bannermen and Dornish princes. Each told a narrative carefully fashioned. Prince Aegon and Queen Daenerys betrothed. Assassins of Cersei cut life short, but his wish honored via marriage to his half-brother Jon Stark Targaryen. All armies commanded to rally under dragon and wolf banners. The Golden Company declared traitor to Lannisters, ally to rightful throne. Across seas ravens beat dark wings. At Dragonstone, Gendry hammered dragonglass spearheads for Unsullied. Reading Tyrion's scroll, he slammed fist on anvil and vowed to sail for King's Landing tunnels before month's end. At Winterfell, Sansa unfolded letter bearing broken wax of both dragon and lion. She closed eyes, tears welling. Bran's visions affirmed, Jon's blood revealed. Yet she pressed quill to parchment swearing North's full strength. In the Red Keep, Qyburn delivered Raven to Queen Cersei. She read, laugh brittle. The dwarf spins yarns. She murmured, but doubt flickered. She summoned pyromancers to accelerate wildfire placement and whispered to Gregor Clegane, prepare for dwarfs and dragons both. Beyond wall, the Night King raised skeletal arms upon Ice Ridge, sensing warm hearts converging far south. A new, deeper cold stirred at his back. A storm within storms. And days on Evenfall passed in fevered preparation. Rhaegal flew Aegon's ashes to Storm's End, scattering them over Dusktide. Connington assumed lordship of Garrison, swearing fealty to Daenerys and Jon. Toyne reorganized sellsword units into winter cohorts. Tyrion oversaw supply ledgers, scribbling by lamplight. Ribs healed enough to forget until quills scratched too long. Wedding plans formed. A modest ceremony at Dragonstone before swift northern march. Septon Maribald, found preaching to fisherfolk, agreed to officiate. Symbols chosen. Dragon and direwolf interlocked circlets forged from Valyrian steel filings mixed with melted Stark silver. Brightfire to bear rings in a velvet pouch round his neck. Jon and Daenerys spent hours atop Ridge talking quietly. Tyrion left them privacy. He saw their silhouettes sometimes, twin profiles against sun's fall, and dared hope affection would bloom beyond duty. Yet tension coiled. Every raven bore rumors. Euron regrouping at Pike. Cersei hiring mummers to claim Daenerys poisoned her nephew. Sothorio's plague ships sighted off Arbor. Each threat another stone on Tyrion's chest. One twilight as he studied grain tallies, Daenerys entered tent, cloak swirling damp sea air. Ride with me, she said without preamble. They mounted Brightfire together. She insisted he share saddle while Drogon hunted. The dragonette leapt, wings beating in strong cadence, ascending into coral dusk. Below, Evenfall's forests swayed. Gulls rose, startled. They flew west along aisles jagged like crocodile teeth. After a time Daenerys spoke against wind. I still see Aegon's face when I close eyes. I fear grief will harden. Tyrion steadied reins. Let it temper, not armor. Armor cracks, but tempered steel flexes. She half laughed. You speak like a smith. I've apprenticed in sorrow's forge. She fell silent, hair streaming. Then, why did Brightfire allow Aegon's hand? Dragons rarely accept strangers. Majesty, Tyrion considered. He smelled Targaryen blood, like yours. Nephew or half-brother, Aegon carried enough. Dragons revere the familiar. Then he will accept Jon. I believe so. She exhaled. If not, war may fracture anyway. Tyrion guided Brightfire level. If not, we adapt. Rhaegal may choose Jon, or none. Thrones have been won without dragons' trust. He paused. But not this war. This war demands flame to fight ice. Below, a pod of dolphins breached. Silver arc in sunset. Brightfire chirruped, eager. He dove, causing spray when he skimmed water. They laughed. Free, if only for breaths. When they landed back in camp, Daenerys placed hand over Tyrion's. Thank you, she said, for believing alliance still possible. I will believe until North freezes my tongue off. He squeezed lightly. Now go rest. Wedding looms. She departed with faintest smile. And an owl. Wedding dawn broke cloudless. Sea calm. Gulls still. Dragonstone's courtyard thronged with unsullied Dothraki, Braavosi captains, northern lords freshly arrived by longship. Lyanna Mormont stern as ever. Galbart Glover grumbling at exotic spices in breakfast pottage. Sansa came astride swift palfrey, cloak clasped with direwolf brooch. Her hug with Jon squeezed tears. Samwell Tarly presented scroll verifying lineage, eyes wide as pies. Gendry arrived last, hair singed from forge, bearing 2 new blades of Valyrian steel. One for Jon, long claw reforged with dragonglass pommel, and one for Daenerys, slender but deadly, named True Dawn. Within the Godswood's scorched remains, dragonfire had once burned the weirwood sapling. Septon Maribald began rites. Tyrion stood as witness opposite Sansa Dada. Dragons perched on ramparts, even Drogon quiet, as though aware sacredness. Jon vowed to wield fire and frost as shield for all subject peoples. Daenerys vowed to temper justice with mercy, flame with water, rule with counsel. Rings exchanged, Brightfire rumbling approval. When they kissed, cheers crashed like surf. Tyrion felt eyes prickle. Hosts of Tysha and Shay and of Aegon swirling within heart. Feast followed. Simple fare. Fish stew, honeyed oat bread, Dornish red. No time for decadence. Jon and Daenerys circulated, speaking to lords, to sellsword captains, to unsullied sergeants. Tyrion managed 3 cups of wine before letters demanded attention. Scouts sighted Lannister banners massing on Blackwater Road. Ironborn raids near White Harbor. Reports of White Walkers breaching Eastwatch. That night he found Jon atop parapet, gazing north where Single Star shimmered brightest. Wedding night, and you brewed already, Tyrion teased. Jon smiled faintly. She sleeps, exhausted. Dragons flew since dawn. He looked to Tyrion. Thank you. None of this happens without you. Tyrion waved off. Tell Winter to delay its storm until I've finished 1 decent cask, and we'll be square. Jon's grin faded. Storm's already here. He produced Raven's scroll. Eastwatch fallen, undead host marching south along coast. We ride at first light, dragons and ground forces. Tyrion's stomach dropped. And King's Landing? Grey Worm leads Dothraki and Unsullied. Cersei will strike once she hears of our march. We must end war above wall of flesh and bone before that. Mesimda. He handed scroll. Tyrion read, candle flickering. Cold creeping. Then we win 2 wars at once, he whispered. Over the next hours, plans dovetailed. Gendry's infiltration team, 10 blacksmiths and 3 nimble freeriders, would sail upriver in skiffs, guided by Tyrion's wildfire sewer maps. Their goal: flood vaults, then freeze casks using ice shards carried south by special wagons. Dragonglass fused with Maester arcane salts, courtesy of Sam's studies. A risky gambit, but if fires couldn't burn, Cersei's last trump vanished. Grey Worm mustered Dothraki screamers on shore. 5,000 riders under banner of bloodied sun. Unsullied phalanx marched behind. 18,000 shields. Braavosi fleet would hammer King's Landing harbors with giant scorpions crafted to lob dragonglass bombs. neutralizing Euron's remains. Tyrion would coordinate from forward camp at Rook's Rest, using raven coats and smoke beacons. Meanwhile, Jon, Daenerys, Drogon, Rhaegal, Viserion and Brightfire would fly north with 300 elite northern spears. Under Tormund, 24 Night's Watch Rangers under Ed Tollett, and small cadre of archmaesters with wildfire serums to test on whites. Their objective: kill lieutenants, disrupt Night King's columns, stall until Cersei topple. If either front faltered, doom for all. And now, dawned. Camp buzzed like kicked beehive. Fires doused, tents struck. Tyrion supervised last provisions. Salt pork casks, kegs of beer, crates of onions, tribute to Davos. He made certain Sansa had safe cabin aboard Windhammer bound for Rook's Rest. She insisted on near front seat to serve as northern voice. He did not fight. Stark stubbornness wasted argument. On beach dragons lined, Drogon towering, Rhaegal restless, Viserion calm, Brightfire stamping excitedly. Jon hugged Sansa, whispered, eyes glassy. Daenerys clasped Tyrion's forearm. Keep them honest. Meaning lords, bankers, destiny, he promised. Then dragons rose, 4 shadows across rose skies, bearing half the world's hope upon their backs. Tyrion watched until specks vanished. Only then did he turn and climb aboard command galley, ribs twinging. The sea breeze tasted of ash and salt, history's seasoning. Set course, he commanded. We have a city to save from its queen. As sails bellied and hull creaked forward, Tyrion Lannister, hand of the king and queen, rider of Brightfire, kinslayer and possible Targaryen bastard, felt the future crack open like an egg against a skillet. Whether the contents congealed into feast or stench remained to be seen. He tightened cloak, reached for quill, and set to writing orders, jokes, and final goodbyes unsent. From prow, he looked north where clouds gathered. Dark, immense, and filled with silent falling snow, and south where sun glared on distant spires of the city that had tried to kill him twice. Somewhere between those horizons humanity's candle flickered, and he, half lion, half dragon, would cup his hands around that flame until the last gust died, or his flesh burned through. Full sail, he shouted. The fleet surged, and the tale rolled on, winged and wetted, toward its storm-racked finish.